Sawa.
So, headlines?
Okay, where to start? Front page of the Daily Nation today. What does it tell us? Raila taken ill and advised to go into isolation. It would appear that he's not feeling too well, and the nature of the illness was not immediately clear, though aides explained that Mr. Odinga was experiencing body aches and feeling tired. He underwent several tests at the Nairobi hospital before doctors recommended 2 weeks of isolation. And so this was yesterday. It is national news.
2 weeks of isolation.
Yes.
Okay.
So the handshake meeting is off. That didn't happen yesterday.
Yep.
Because of this, obviously, because he was not feeling well.
Yeah.
The party's director of communication, Mr. Dennis Onyango, said that doctors had advised Odinga to go into isolation for 2 weeks, although COVID-19 was not detected from the tests alone. He says he feels okay, but doctors say some of the signs he has, such as feeling tired, need to be monitored. Earlier, another aide had said the ODM leader had complained of body aches during before checking into hospital, where a series of tests was done. He was also confirmed that Mr. Odinga had been admitted to hospital.
Okay.
Right?
So he's at the Nairobi hospital.
Excuse me, yes, he is. So it's a wait-see kind of thing.
And
He's
what
just
kind
told
of
to rest it
symptoms
out.
was he exhibiting?
Body ache, fatigue, So,
Ah.
like this and like that.
So there's body ache, there's fatigue, and they say he had a grueling week last week in the coast.
Yeah, I mean, everyday rallies for 6 days. It was not easy.
That is nothing new for Raila. 6 days of touring the coast. It's the first time he's done it.
Maybe there was something else percolating under the surface. And
Probably,
then now it's
man.
coming through.
Yeah.
You
He had a busy week, so we wish him all the best.
Yeah.
Quick recovery and all the best to Raila. What other headline do you have that is related to that?
Related to that is that they're also talking about options, because on the front page of the Standard, it's like things fall apart. In the aftermath of last week's weekend outburst by close associates of the two handshake partners, allies have been quick to dismiss fears raised as a mere storm in a teacup. But what would happen if push came to shove and the ODM leader exited? The Standard is exploring options available to the Orange Supremo. So it's like you're already saying, okay, so if this happens, here is what you can do. Are we jumping the gun here?
Well, just being ready.
It's being ready
It's
and having options in
It's
terms
possible.
of what could happen.
What
So,
are these options?
So according to this story, there is no longer ease in the handshake house of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, and that's not a secret. In the aftermath, things have moved very quickly. But what if, to borrow Chinua Achebe's words, the centre cannot hold and Raila bolts out of his pact with Uhuru? If the ODM leader were to exit from the famous handshake with President Kenyatta, he would not only be leaving behind an empty shell of a ruling party, but also face an uncertain future. However, analysts are beginning to draw parallels between the issues raised by Senate Minority Leader James Orengo, the looming 2022 election, and the emergence of new formations that could hurt the Building Bridges initiative prospects. Right? So, one of these is that there would be a Super 7. A fallout between Uhuru and Raila would undoubtedly scuttle the push for constitutional amendments fronted through the BBI process, through which the president has said he hopes to fashion a legacy. According to University of Nairobi political scientist Philip Nyinguro, that's according to him. Someone else says that, and this is also a lecturer of political science at the University of Dodoma, he termed the BBI as an afterthought by the leaders, even though President Kenyatta had recently upped his involvement following a backlash from his Mount Kenya backyard. But a split between the two, whose truce came at a time when the president faced questions over his legitimacy following a disputed repeat election in 2027, could portend more if the history of broken political marriages involving the former PM is anything to go by. They came together, allies of the DP, read mischief into Raila's intentions and warned that his involvement would leave Jubilee a shell. So, I'm not seeing what these options are. I'm just seeing...
They're not listed. 1, 2, 3. They're just all over. Right?
Yeah, it's just this is what could happen.
Something could happen here. What could happen there? Oburu has said it's also an option that Raila can work with Ruto. So basically, it's a whole headline and a whole page story of an analysis.
Yeah.
And saying, this could happen. We've seen history before. It's also possible that this could happen. Without necessarily saying that this
is the thing.
there's a conversation that's happening within Raila's camp, and they're exploring the options. So it's all speculation at this particular point.
It is.
Okay. The inquest into the death of Keroche heiress Tekra Karanja was taking place yesterday, and the mother and father plus other people were at the Milimani courts yesterday to give evidence in this particular case, and where it emerged that within months the late Tekra had transferred 1.2 million shillings to her lover Omar Lali's accounts in the first 8 months of their relationship. And this is what was coming all in a testimony at the inquest of the Tekra Muigai. Mrs. Karanja said her daughter would have achieved her big dreams were it not for the relationship with Omar Lali, which she blamed for her death. Mrs. Karanja, Tabitha Karanja, was the first witness in the inquest, and she painted a picture of Omar being a lucky man who hit a jackpot in his old age with a young woman who would shower him with gifts, drinks, holidays, and money in his accounts without breaking a sweat. So she's basically saying that this guy is a woman eater. That's all she said here. Old man, met a younger woman. She comes from a privileged background. She has access to all this money. And look, the man is no longer even breaking a sweat. He's enjoying a good life. He's going on holidays. He's going to the Mount Kenya. He's going to Tanzania. He's touring the country.
He's not lacking much.
He is not lacking nothing. She says, 8 months after Tekra and Omar began their relationship, her daughter had transferred more than 1.2 million shillings to her boyfriend's account through bank and mobile transfer. This was very suspicious, given that Omar was old and Tekra was very young. It would have been vice versa for him to send her money. And if Tekra was the one giving him money, then there was something very wrong with this relationship.
Still, the thing is that even, we're looking at, we're going to how long after her death now?
Yeah, man.
Right. Look, and this is not to say that, there's nothing...
From April last year.
April last year. We're almost at a year now.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to say that time, that it's enough time and say, okay, by now you should have... No, there's never anything like that. But it is very clear that the death of this young woman has bothered her parents in a manner in which they've really not been able to come to terms with. This inquest continues now, and for them, I think they're at the point where they're really saying, we want to really understand what happened. That regardless of whether they had these issues of drug abuse, which has been reported over and over again, the circumstances under which their daughter died, they're not comfortable with that. And we understand that they're seeking closure, even in this inquest, and to say that if somebody then did take her life, this person should suffer the consequences. However, beyond that, you can see that there is something that... they're still not at peace with, and really saying that, these details that are emerging as a result of the investigations that continue, we're not happy with them. We're not comfortable, and it should not be that not just our daughter, but anybody else should not have to go through something like this.
I think it's also emerging here that clearly Mrs. Karanja in particular was never, ever in support of this relationship. From the word go. The way she's speaking now, because she says that Tekra had sent... She says, Tekra sent me the picture of Omar, but I told her the man was too old to be her boyfriend. She then eloped with him to Lamu, but later agreed to come back to Naivasha, where we tried to talk to her, but she refused to leave him. So from the word go, Tabitha was not comfortable with this Omar Lali. And this was it's a point where you have a grown-up child. She is making her decisions. You are, as a mother, as a parent, are seeing this is not the right decision for you to make, but she's insisting on going ahead with that decision. So we are at a point where we can clearly see that this mother was not comfortable at all with this relationship, but the girl was completely happy and she was comfortable with this relationship. She transferred money from her accounts to his account, and that's the money that they were using for their upkeep. At some point, she also told their PA, and this is Mrs. Karanja's PA, that you'll be sending money to me, but through his mobile phone. and the money is sent. The PA came on and also testified the way she would send 60,000 shillings within 2 months, 80,000 shillings, just like that, just sending money to them for their upkeep. Somebody else who came to testify is a friend of Tekra's, a childhood friend who still works in a hotel industry in Naivasha, who says he noticed that they used to fight a lot, the couple, Tekra and Omar Lali, and he'd ask Tekra, what's up? And she was like, okay, he's not comfortable with me being, close with other people. He raises issues about that. He raises issues about, me being forthright and being strong. And that's why we have this kind of commotion. That's according to the testimony that was given by Tekra's friend. Let's get to the point where now we also hear the testimony from Omar and Omar's friends and those who actually lived with them in Lamu, and see what kind of relationship did these two have. Yeah. From those who were closely observing them, were they seeing two lovers, or were they seeing a man who was after a girl's money? Yeah, because yesterday's testimony was clearly, this is it. This guy, that's why the money issue comes up. This guy was after our daughter's money.
They're not going to be able to get away from that one, and not anytime soon either.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so there's a story that really bothered me, and you're actually the one who put me onto this story this morning.
We'll look at it after the break.
Okay, let's do that.
Yep, so we look at it after this traffic break. Let's see what's happening on the roads. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We thank you very much for tuning in this morning. Keep it right here as we look at more newspaper headlines, and also we keep hearing who's online, or keep checking who's online and acknowledging your presence this morning. Good morning. It's 6:30.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Japan biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also covered. Mention our course, you will not fail to get it. Visit our website today on www.studyinjapan-africa.com.
Okay, so Mombasa Road is a heavy then between the turnoff at Embakasi, even before that, from the SGR heading out towards General Motors today. We're doing so well on Mombasa Road, and then boom, it's Wednesday, and here we are with a lot of traffic outbound. All right, so that's what we're seeing right now. Let's look at other parts of the city where, yeah, that's it. So we know that there was a terrible accident at GM at around 5:15 this morning, and it's holding up traffic because they've not been able to clear that vehicle out of there. It was quite a serious one. So the traffic that you're seeing is as a result of that. Hopefully it's going to move a little bit when that is moved. Getting into the city via Jogo Road is actually not bad right right about now. As you then go via Landis Road, that's all right. Getting into industrial area and out around this hour also looking pretty good. As you get towards 7 o'clock, we know that things are going to clog up. We'll take a look at Thika Road and how that is. Getting into the CBD, we expect to see some traffic. The service lanes will do you well right about now. Want to take a look at Kiambu Road. If you're going in that direction, you should be all right on there and coming towards Thika Road. That's a different story. We'll look at those details in a bit. Don't carry cash to the ferry. I'm going to remind you at least until Friday. If you're in Mombasa, use M-Pesa. All right, let's talk in a bit. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter in case you get stuck somewhere. Or if you're having a hunky-dory time getting through traffic, let us know that as well and we'll share. Talk to us via text also on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
6 minutes to 7 o'clock.
94.4
This is Kenya's
Spice
biggest
FM,
conversation. In the
Nairobi.
room with you this morning is Nduoko and Eric Latif. And online,
Okay, so now everybody's online now this morning. Twitter MCA is saying, listening from across the shores. Good morning. Abdir Kadir Abdallah is tuning from Komarok and he's listening until the end. Fantastic.
Maruks.
Ebubere Mumias is where Faristo Muganda is tuned in from, and he says, Nikondani and Pango. Good morning, listening from the University of Eldoret. That's Jeremiah Mwenga. And Alex Kipto is tuning from Moyes Bridge, loud and clear. Olima Laz is tuned in from Rabur, Kisumu. Kariwa Wagikoyo is tuned in from Mombasa. Benny Nash tuned in from Nyandara County, and Dorcas Mutali Chanda tuned in from Zambia. Good morning. Tuned in from Kendu Bay is Wycliffe Gisore. And Zakaria says, boy child akipeana do, no problem. And girl child, it's a crime. Okay, so I think referring to the Tekra story. Vincent Omondi says, good morning from Kisumu. And Waterman Jeffrey is tuning from Hennepin County in Minnesota. Good morning, spicing it up from Mombasa. And that's Robert Mbogo. We had said hello to Beda Ashley. And Alex Mbogo tuning from Nyeri. Ben Mumo tuned in this morning. And Eric Gitonga says, good morning. My goodness, everybody's online today. Karen Ratego, good morning. Newton D, tuned in from Kawa Sukari. Lukume Cabras is where Junior Atetwe is tuned in from.
Right.
And it said hello to Macadero Mike. And Ronald Felix says, Eric.
Rono.
There you go.
Good morning. That story that you say has disturbed you. Read the headline.
It really did. And it just has me, it's heavy for me this morning. The headline alone will throw your mind into a bit of a tailspin. Boy killed, eaten by an insane man. And that's just not it. 5-year-old boy, Ian Kideka Kisilu, woke up in high spirits and bid goodbye to his father and mother as he left for school after having breakfast Monday morning. He was joined by playmates and friends on his way to Katumbu Preschool. As the children approached school, a man emerged from the bushes and began chasing them. They scampered for safety, but Kisilu was not lucky enough as the man, said to be mentally ill, caught up with him and pushed him to the ground. According to the Kanduti chief, Mary Muvenge, the man dragged the screaming boy into a bush, strangled, and decapitated him. He fled with the child's head, according to Miss Muvenge. The incident was not discovered until noon when the class teacher took roll call. That is when the children told her of their encounter with the madman. The teacher notified the head teacher, who quickly reported the matter to the area chief and police. More than 200 villagers were quickly mobilized to search for the boy. The group was shocked to find the torso of the boy and his clothes meters away from a footpath. More shocking was the fact that the man, had roasted the child's head and eaten it. The villagers caught up with the man around 2 p.m., stoned him to death and set his body on fire. Apparently, the child had also been reportedly molested by a neighbor just 2 weeks ago. I can't even continue reading the story.
So this is a 5-year-old child who is going to preschool. This is basically just a child going to kindergarten in the company of others. Somebody emerges from the bushes, chases them, catches this particular young boy. The other kids go to school. The teacher, when the teacher is taking roll call, that's when the teacher notices, okay, so-and-so is not in. Where is so-and-so? And the other said, we were chased, we were by so-and-so, and he was caught. The teacher alerts the headmaster. Headmaster alerts the chief and the locals. A team is mobilized. People go looking in the thickets. They find the decapitated body. And this is within hours.
Yeah.
The man had actually decapitated the child, gone with the head. They find that the man had roasted the head of the baby, eaten. He's mentally unstable, as they say. But as parents, as other children, the kind of trauma that goes with it, you can't even imagine.
I don't even know where to start from. And this same boy, we're not talking about a different boy. This same boy was molested just a fortnight ago. I mean,
as parents to that,
for crying out loud,
it is such a sad story. So, the irate crowd basically lynched the man and they burnt him. Okay. That's one of those stories that you're like, I don't even know what to say. Yeah, it's Pole sana to the parents of this young boy. Pole sana to the villagers here, and it's like that. This story is on page 8 of The Nation. It's also on the Standard. It's on what page of the Standard? It's on page 2 of the Standard.
The Standard. Very heavy story, and I can't.
It's one of those. Page 8 of The Nation has the story of an African leader who's been taken ill and admitted to a hospital in Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes.
And this is not the story of Raila Odinga. It's about another African leader. The leader of an African country who has not appeared in public for nearly 2 weeks is admitted to Nairobi Hospital for COVID-19 treatment, even as his government remains mum on his whereabouts. The leader, who regularly addresses church congregants and public rallies when inspecting or launching government projects, was last seen in public on the 27th of February. The Nation cannot disclose his name, as officials from both governments declined to officially confirm his admission to Nairobi Hospital, citing diplomatic protocol. Multiple sources, however, have confirmed that the leader, who has reportedly been ailing since late last month, flew to Kenya on Monday when his health deteriorated. If Nation could just tell us the country, we could guess the leader.
Yeah.
Give us a hint.
Something. Close proximity to the country.
Because now this is so great. I mean, I cannot even try to guess which country could this be.
Who could it be
which
that
leader
we're talking
could
about
this be?
here?
This kind of story sometimes. The leader of an African country whose country has not been talking about COVID so much. Leader,
he's not appeared in public for 2 weeks.
It's not easy to guess. They should tell us which. We'll be looking at.
The World Health Organization, in the last paragraph of this story, has repeatedly pressed the country to disclose its COVID-19 infection numbers and issue public warnings against the deadly virus.
Now, which country could this be?
I wonder which country this could be.
The Catholic Church in that African country recently said its top clerics had died from ailments with symptoms similar to those of COVID-19. It also distributed guidelines to bishops of various dioceses on measures to protect themselves against COVID while conducting mass, weddings, prayers, and other services. I don't know which country this could be. This kind of stories sometimes you wonder. So what do they want to tell us? Should give us a hint of which country this could be.
Something at least.
Well, something we could use to
We're
guess.
very confused. We don't know who it possibly could be.
Absolutely no idea. Which president? Not president. We don't even know whether it's a president or a prime minister.
Leader.
Whether it's a deputy president.
But
whether
it's the leader of an African
It's
country.
a leader of an African country. I don't even know. As we talk about that, this Friday is when the time lapses for the night curfew. And President Kenyatta is expected to address the nation on Friday when COVID-19 restrictions imposed in January lapse, with sources suggesting the night curfew will not be lifted yet. The head of state's address, coinciding with 1 year since the first coronavirus case was reported in the country, is anticipated by most Kenyans keen to know the fate of the current curfew and enforced between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Since the virus struck in March last year, the night curfew has been a constant feature of restrictions imposed to control the spread of the disease. So what do you expect to hear from the president this Friday, especially now with the rising numbers?
He's going to increase. He's going to prolong the curfew.
It's going to be prolonged?
Yeah.
To what impact? To what effect?
I don't know. Look, it's got to be shown as that something is being done. That there will be criticism will be rife if, with the rising numbers that we are seeing, and then yes, we know that curfew comes. The curfew that's currently in place now comes to an end on Friday. At the same time, numbers are rising. You remove the curfew, you will be seen as careless. No matter how, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether there are businesses that are suffering right now that need the nighttime to get back into things. You don't do that. At least let it be shown that you're doing something, whether the vaccine is here or not. Let it be shown that you then were not careless in making an announcement or making a move that could increase infections, whether it is true or not. That does the virus have a chance of spreading now because people will be allowed to go up and about during the night? Not necessarily. However, for me, it's more of a face of that it needs to be shown that you're doing something.
That something is happening.
Yeah, even if it's for another 30 days. I don't see him lifting it.
So it's likely that this one will... I actually don't also see him lifting it. Not at this point. No. Not when we have just started the vaccination, and not when we are going through another peak. And not when you hear reported
stories,
cases.
Yeah. And then not when you hear stories of a fear of rapid spread as 35 inmates found with the COVID-19. Reports of 24 inmates in Migori and 11 in Nandi County testing positive for COVID-19 caused anxiety in jails countrywide. The nation has learned that at least 2,000 inmates are under observation and isolation in Kapsabet prison, which has 380 inmates also there under isolation. 8 detainees are under isolation at the Manyani prison in Voi. So this is across the country. Wow. It's not just in one place. Kapsabet, Nandi, Voi, Migori. Taita, the Veta Health Department, said the prison is being monitored to ensure the virus does not spread. So these are the stories that are going on right now,
Meru health officials are on high alert after cases were reported at Kangeta and Meru prisons. So
it's unlikely that he's going to say, okay, be like Texas, California, and Mississippi in the US and say, okay, open it all up. I doubt it.
Not yet.
Not
yet. So this will not happen. At the same time, just as we look at the COVID stories before we take the break, this story of the Catholic clergy who differed with the doctors on COVID-19 vaccines. The Catholic Church has distanced itself from calls by doctors practicing the faith who urged Kenyans not to rush into being vaccinated against COVID. The Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops urged the faithful willing to be vaccinated against the virus to do so. We make it clear that the recent statement from the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association was not made on behalf of the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. The doctors cannot and should not speak in the name of the Catholic Church. So the doctors, even though you practice the Catholicism, you are not the spokespersons of the Catholic Church. The spokespersons of the Catholic Church in this country are the clergy under the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops. That is it. And the Conference of Catholic Bishops has pronounced itself clearly on this matter and said, we have absolutely nothing against the vaccine.
It was good to have that clarification. I
think it was also timely. Let's take a break at this point. 13 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We'll be back looking at more headlines shortly.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good job.
You. Asante sana. The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Wasingishi was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant. And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Japan, biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
11 to 7.
Nairobi.
Looking at the headlines. So there's let's still talk about COVID.
Okay.
Because this is COVID commemoration week. 1 year of COVID in the country. COVID millionaires continue to walk scot-free a year later. The story starts by Paul Wafula in The Nation. At a time like this last year, highly connected businessmen were making last-minute plans to charter planes to fly in scarce COVID-19 gear from China and India. As health officials were fixated on the global movement of the virus, which had now arrived in Africa, entrepreneurs were lining up at the register of companies to incorporate new outfits that would become the vehicles to get fraudulent tenders at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA. Then there were the lucky ones who just walked to KEMSA's head offices on Commercial Street in Nairobi's Inacho area and found tenders being dished out. In their own admission, they walked out with lucrative tenders. So this was not the end. At this point, last year, there had been no confirmed case of COVID in the country. But at this point, last year, there were companies, there were people who were already seeing opportunities are going to come. One thing for sure is people will require masks. PPEs will be needed. Just looking at what's happening globally. And there are people who are registering their companies, getting them ready and lined up for that opportunity. So when it came, it was all systems go. Chartered planes are already ready on the runway. Masks are ready to be shipped in. They were brought in, supplied to KEMSA. People walked scot-free. In that whole frenzy, there were those lucky people who were hearing, wait, and at KEMSA you can sell.
Oh, no.
What can I do? What kind of business can I do? You can supply masks. Walk into KEMSA and my goodness, you don't believe it when you walk out and you're told, supply, we'll give you 20 million. Supply 20 million worth. And you're like,
how?
But that is, you do not know that there's somebody who has been given 10 times that kind of tender. Supply 200 million, supply 900 million shillings worth of PPEs. A year later, after it emerged that there was a lot of things happening, only officials of KEMSA have been suspended. No one has yet to be charged. Parliament is still playing ping pong here with what they are calling an investigation. Public Accounts Committee. There was a committee of the Senate that investigated this. The Health Committee of Parliament investigated this. The thing is, scot-free.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. The wrong people are being asked the important questions right now. The wrong people are becoming the centers of investigation. And I'm sorry, but it would appear to me that if these names are in the public sphere, then they, as the Accounts Committee, for example, the Assembly Committee that is supposed to be overseeing this investigation, they know. So why the yellow liver approach to hitting the nail on the head? That's the question. Just get it done if you're really interested. If you're not, leave us alone. Let's do something else.
As all that is happening, as Parliament is busying itself with what they're calling the so-called investigations, Families of fallen medics are yet to be compensated.
Now, do you see? Now that's
the government
thing
is yet to compensate the families of the frontline health workers who died in the line of duty almost a year after President Uhuru Kenyatta directed that a welfare package be developed to cushion them from the ravages of COVID-19. According to KMPDU Secretary General Chibanzi Mochonda, whom we shall be speaking to at 8 o'clock, the families of the 16 doctors who have since died in line of duty are yet to get a penny from the government despite numerous requests. Huku haya ya kijiri. Meanwhile, last year, 10 months ago, the president also announced a stimulus package for the tourism and hospitality sector. 2.2 billion shillings worth. They have not yet received the money. This is a time when cost hoteliers are applying for the stimulus package. Many of them are not qualifying for the package because of compliance issues. According to the Kenya Tourism Federation chairman, Mohamed Hersi, most of the establishments have not qualified for the funds due to unclear tax records, pre-existing loans, and shareholder ownership. He says many of these establishments already had loans. And so they're applying for this particular stimulus package so they can go and settle their loans. And then they're able to operate. And they're told, no. You cannot take this money to go and pay a loan. You need to take this money to go and operate. According to the Tourism Federation, Tourism Finance Corporation Managing Director, Jonah Erumoi, 55 key large hotels from the region have applied in the second phase. Many failed because of compliance issues and poor documentation. Most of the areas we targeted are Lamu, Kilifi, Mombasa, and Kwale. It emerged that most coast hoteliers had failed to apply for the funds due to these compliance issues. They were to access the loans at an interest rate of 5% running for 10 years, but borrowers will start repaying the loans after 1 year. So money has been made available, but then the stringent conditions for accessing this money means that many of these businesses will not be able to actually dip their hand into the kitty.
But was that the thing before that, because it would appear that, okay, so COVID comes in, businesses are depressed because of the state of things.
Yeah.
So what the government essentially would do was give them a much needed shot in the arm, and then they would be able to at least, survive for the period that COVID was depressing things.
Yep.
And then,
we shall deal later.
But then it would seem as if, okay, yeah, we're helping you, but this help comes with conditions. Certain things that you must do, and if you're not able to do them, then you cannot get this life-saving vaccine, as it were. So
I think as you hear this, it means that it's only the big players who will be able to access these funds. The smaller players will not be able to access these funds, but it also exposes many things that have been happening in this sector quietly. The issue of tax compliance, when many are not able to access this money because of questionable tax records, it tells you something. That there are many businesses that have been operating in this sector, in the tourism and hospitality sector, that are not paying tax, that are not complying with the tax regulations, that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now you're exposed, you're coming to borrow and you're told, all right, give us your tax compliance certificate.
Then you find that
apply tax compliance certificates on iTax. It tells you, my friend, we can't give you a tax compliance certificate because you're not compliant.
It doesn't exist. Sheesh.
Yeah. Big exposure.
Okay. So, county security teams have been roped in on the war against terrorism. It seems to be a silent issue, but it seems to be a constant issue. It doesn't come out and pop out there, but it's something that security agencies and forces continue to deal with. So now the KDF has roped in county security teams in the war on tourism in a deal expected to greatly reduce terrorist attacks. The Kenya Defence Forces and the Inspectorate departments in 12 counties will work together in surveillance and information gathering. KDF, through its National Counter-Terrorism Centre, has begun training county law enforcers adopt strategies to fight violent extremism in hotspots experiencing a surge in Al-Shabaab threats. The program, dubbed Security Sector CVE, targets 24,000 inspectorate teams. According to their head, Rashid Harun, KDF targets Lamu, Tana River, Kilifi, Mombasa, Kwale, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Isiolo, Marsabit, and Nairobi counties in the pilot phase. Harun said the 12 counties were selected to because some have recorded the highest number of people who have crossed from Somalia, while others have registered many incidents of radicalization. So he says Mandera, Wajir and Garissa have active militants. Al-Shabaab incidents have also been recorded there. A security operation is ongoing in Bonny Forest. We are sharing skills with the inspectorate teams. Their data will then be taken to our analysts. In Mombasa, KDF has trained 40 inspectorate officers, Kilifi 110 and 90 in Kwale. So they're saying, look, the only way to deal with this thing is to work with the county so that they can give us their information and we train their people.
Let's work with the people. That is a very good way to go. As we go to the top of the hour, let's just look at this one particular. It's not a story, it's an advert. On page 4 of The Nation this morning, there's somebody who's placed an advert here. It's a quarter-page advert. Want to increase your profitability? Samuel Gesharu Miner seeking a long-term employment opportunity with a reputable organization. Then he puts in his profile here. He says he's an experienced professional with over 10 years concrete corporate exposure across various countries in marketing and market research, monitoring and evaluation, project management, data analysis, and business consultancy. He has worked with some of the leading local and international firms, including the Big Four consultancy firms. He has chaired PPP processes as the technical lead. He has supported a corporate client on regional annual survey for the last 5 years. He has managed research projects in East Africa and beyond. He holds a BSc in statistics from the University of Nairobi with a number of self-improvement professional certifications. And then he says, you can reach me via somecareer21@gmail.com. Basically, a man has applied for a job using a newspaper advert.
Yeah.
He's taken out an ad and he's put in there and says, look, I am looking for long-term employment opportunity. And here I am. This is what I can do. This is what I have done. Someone is commenting and said, this sounds like an investor. He has invested in a newspaper ad.
It's not
he
cheap.
expects returns out of this.
It's not cheap.
Okay.
Some will say the fella is being proactive, no?
It's being proactive.
Thousands of people are bound to see this today.
Yeah.
And it could be that his skills is what somebody is looking for.
Oh, yes.
So somebody might pick up on this. Fella's clever, I think.
Keep it right here. Let's have more conversations into the next hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. SpiceFM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Yeah, so we know folks are arriving home late, getting to work late because they have to contend with what is Mombasa Road and the mess because of the construction going on. They've told us December, guys. It's another 8 months to go, 9 months to go. But in the meantime, it looks like it's going to be thick and heavy. That's what the traffic looks like this morning, all the way through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Very, very slow today. And the construction inbound as well is suffering because of this. Thika Road from Roysambu to town is moving well, not a problem, but there's a snarl up around Madari Hospital. The outer lane going towards Utali rather is faster, so you can use that one, but please be safe, guys. Fika Salama. Tafadhali. All right, coming out of Westlands, we know that bridge at Kangemi is still bringing that one down slowly. Construction is going on there, so things slow down just a little bit. All right, so where are we seeing the hotspots this morning? Mombasa Road. We're also seeing Thika Road causing a problem, but Langata Road looks good, so does Ngong Road. Getting into the city via Huru Highway, however, is a different story. Let's look at it in a short while and see how that opens up. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the
So
only
it's
way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room. Welcome to the show this morning. We're glad that you're joining us this morning. We are live on SpiceFM. We are live online on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we are also now live on KTN Home. Our audience on KTN Home, welcome to your radio experience on TV. Let's begin with today's proverb. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. Rain does not fall on one roof alone.
Opportunities for everybody.
When things go well, they go well for everybody. When things don't go well, even your neighbors will get the rain. If it rains in your neighborhood, it'll rain on every roof.
There you go.
Okay. So with that in mind, tell us about that story on page 8 of The Nation.
Okay. So, we see, all right, that are we going to talk about it, or are we just going to, fuddle about some of these issues? That it is very clear where this story is coming out from. And we also saw on social media yesterday, over through the day, that stories coming out of Tanzania were that the president has taken ill. Now, whether he is the same president or he's the same African leader that is in hospital here in Nairobi, we're not going to connect the two just yet. But should it be that the president of Tanzania has been infected with COVID, I think it's something for us to really look at in terms
What's
of...
the story, Ndu? So you just tell her. What is the story?
That the Tanzanian president has been infected with COVID and is in Kenya.
That's the rumor.
That's the rumor.
What's the story?
What do you mean, what's the story?
The story is that there's an African leader.
Okay, that's the story that's being told. There's an African leader that has been taken ill and is admitted in a hospital in Nairobi.
Okay.
That's the story. Okay? Now, the story has many underlying issues that we're looking at here. All right? Has told us that it is a country that has been urged by the World Health Organization to declare and to continue giving data on its COVID-19 status. Yes. The same country where from within, Catholic leaders have said that, we need to be very careful about what's going on. Many people have been reporting to hospital unwell. Doctors have also reported the same. The same country where the leader has not been in the public eye for the last 2 weeks. And the same country whereby public health measures such as wearing masks and banning of large meetings, large gatherings, remained adamant. The same leader remained adamant about how they were not going to force some of these things to happen. What are we talking about here?
Okay. So what is coming out here is a number of things. It starts with the rumor that there's an African president who's been admitted to a hospital in Nairobi. It also goes with news coming out of Tanzania that they haven't seen their president in public for a couple of days, since the 27th of February. He hasn't been seen in public. Then it goes with the opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, tweeting and asking, what's up with our president? And he's asking a very legitimate questions, because this is what he said on his Twitter. He said, the president's well-being is a matter of grave public concern. We are informed when Kikwete had prostate surgery. We were told when Mkapa went for hip replacement. We were not kept in the dark when Mwalimu Julius Nyerere fought leukemia. What's it with Magufuli that we don't deserve to know? That is a question that he asked. He did not say anything that, I've heard that the president... Nope. He basically is saying, if there's all these rumors around the country that the president is unwell, what is it? Why can't we be told what is happening?
I have to ask the same question. Why can't they be told if he's unwell? But you see, the problem with this is that this is the issue. Everybody's mind, whether you want to say pepper it with a bit of carefulness right now, everybody's mind is going directly to that. That coming out of a country whereby, number one, he was very outspoken about this whole vaccine thing. And then number two, even before that, said that, we don't have an issue with COVID. We have prayed and God has healed us. Then coming back and say, we're going to go into another 3 days of prayer. And since God heard us before, he's going to hear us today. Telling his Ministry of Health, do not even think about going into this whole vaccine hunt. Don't do it. And don't even take masks or anything that have not come or have not been produced in Tanzania. All these things were being said. Don't you think that if it turns out that if this gentleman is unwell and then now is being treated in Nairobi, that it's going to raise some serious eyebrows about what should have been done in the country when it comes to COVID? This is the assumption. Whether it is that he's suffering from something totally different and he's in Nairobi for some kind of specialist treatment, everybody's mind, however educated, however open, is going to say, okay, the gentleman must have COVID, number one. Number two, why was he not more careful? And why was he putting his country at risk and in jeopardy when it came to COVID-19? Everybody's mind is going to go to that, whether you like it or not. Whether you want to be the most open-minded person, whether you're the person who says, no, let's wait and see and hear before. No. Then you're hiding it, number two. You don't see your president, who just a week ago was very vocal about some of these things.
Invisible. Yeah, he's
then
all
he's
over,
not
he's
there.
visible. So if the government of Tanzania, seeing the kind of rumor that is spreading in the country and in the region, should come out and say, if the president is well, let the president come out and say, guys, what are you talking about?
I'm okay.
I'm
here
here
I
in
am.
Chatu. I'm chilling. If he is unwell, let the government actually come out and say, so this is what is happening to our president. He is unwell. If he's suffering from anything else that's not COVID, just say, this is it. He has pneumonia. Just come out and say, this is what he's suffering from. The news, by the time the nation is actually publishing this story, they say, we cannot name the president because neither of the officials from the two governments could clarify and confirm the matter. We also are not saying that this is the president of Tanzania who is in this hospital. On this show, we also do not know who's in this hospital. We are just looking at what are these chances? What kind of leadership are we talking about that could have come to Nairobi to seek treatment? And what could they be suffering from? They could actually be here, true. But it has nothing at all to do with COVID. Maybe the person who's reporting this has said, they had this kind of symptoms and then it's misconstrued to mean COVID. We don't know. Until it's officially announced, we don't know. But we will go with what we are seeing and what we are hearing from the region. And what we are seeing and hearing from the region is John Pombe Magufuli has not appeared in public for a couple of days. John Pombe Magufuli, we know his stand on COVID-19. He has said the last public sighting was during Lent, and he was at Catholic Church and he was attending Mass, and he said, Bishop, I can see you and some of your clergy are wearing masks. Look at me. Justice so-and-so, I can see you're wearing masks. But look at me, look at those who are around me. We're not wearing masks. Are we okay? We're fine. We don't need to have to keep worrying about this mask. And if you must wear a mask, wear a locally manufactured mask. Following week, we see a number of things happening. One, the vice president of Zanzibar dies. Two, the ministers in the government of Tanzania are hospitalized and they come out coughing and sneezing and saying, okay, guys, I'm fine. I'm going back to work.
Can't breathe, but I'm fine.
Three, we see the health ministry issuing alerts and saying, all right, so this is what we're going to do, especially in the rapid buses. Make sure that you don't crowd in those buses. Make sure that you're very careful about when to wash your hands, observing all the hygiene to combat COVID-19. 4, we see the Catholic Church coming out to say, this is what has happened. Our clergy, the nuns and the priests have died because of COVID, and this is what we want to do. All that coming out of Tanzania. Opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who obviously has a lot of access and to information from various sources within the country, when he asks this question, there's something that he's asking. So what are the answers? And the answers would be, the government of Tanzania needs to come out and tell its people.
It would be very
where their president is.
and it would be very careless of them not to do. It would be very careless of government not to do that, especially when you're dealing with something like this. Whereby weeks ago it was said that, you know what, first of all, if not just for your people's safety, if not just for information that is critical for them to have when it comes to dealing with something like COVID, think about the area within which your country is. Think about those who are in the community around you, other countries, whereby you have a very long border and you have various entry points. We saw that the government on this side of things had now, increased surveillance at the different border points. Think about that, and you see that there's still the movement of people across borders, and we're talking about something that is highly contagious. Why not take the responsibility in even saying that, yes, we have seen cases of this here, we've increased our surveillance, we've increased and made sure that we've put measures in place to make sure that people are taken care of. But then all this thing that's shrouded in secrecy, to me, you actually do more harm than good. More harm than good. Okay, so like I said, just like you're saying, if the fellow is sick with something else completely different, you're actually better if you tell people.
Yep.
If it is that he has COVID, you're actually better, again, if you tell people.
Just tell the people.
Just tell the people what's going on.
This is what's happening.
This is something that the world is dealing with. And guess what? One of the antidotes to this is the proper sharing of information. And I remember when this thing first came out in the world, the very first thing that we said is, just be honest with people about what the situation is. That is one of the things that's going to get you further along in this fight than any drug, any hospitalization, any measure. Information that is true is what you need to do to do the due diligence to fight this thing.
Yep.
Just tell the truth. Why are we still trying to... The horse has bolted, then you're still crawling on the floor trying to catch one of its legs. Come on. Say it and just be honest with people about what's going on. You're doing more harm than good. If it is true that this leader is actually the Tanzanian president hospitalized in a Kenyan hospital. If there's a connection between this story and what are we seeing coming out of Tanzania.
And if indeed then it is true, what next? Especially going with the kind of messaging that the president himself has come out with. What next? What would you expect that then would be the stance?
I think if that is true, then I think he's going to eat a healthy dollop of humble pie. Or it's necessary for him to do that. Because then, either one, you confirm what people's suspicions were this whole time. And then you have an opportunity to roll back on those things and actually protect your people. And look, at the point where we are, it's not too late. Again, if we had mass deaths of people in Tanzania, we would hear the same way we've heard from the Catholic Church, for example, that, people have reported to hospital with pneumonia-like symptoms, right?
Yep.
The Ministry of Health also saying the same thing.
Yep.
Now, we have not heard that there are people who are dropping like flies in Tanzania. If we had heard that, then, it would be
But we've also heard
different.
that people have been dying in Tanzania from such kind of complications.
Right. But
just the same way you can say it's happening in Kenya, but maybe with higher number.
True.
Their wave may be higher. The peak of the wave may be higher than our peak.
Yeah, but still, there's something to be saved, right? Because if there is now a public acknowledgement in the country that this is actually happening, now shout it from the rooftops that we have an opportunity to take care of ourselves. There are things that we can put in place to make sure that we are protected. Now would be the time to do it. Even if you had people who were doing it all this time, waiting for you to get your things in order, now open it up, make it public, and say that it's something that you want the entire country to do. But this burying your head in the sand where everybody can see you're an ostrich, I don't understand. We can see very clearly what's going on. Your little head, you've buried it in the sand, but your plumes of black and white are shining for the whole world to see. Come on. It should be dealt with. Protect your people.
The other side of this story that I also see is if by any chance, say, somebody who's been vocal about, he's been saying, yes, there is COVID, but there is a lot that we can do. And he's also said, people have died of very many other things. We can die. We don't know how we will go. We can die anyhow. We can die out of any other cause. So already we have seen the president acknowledging, yes, COVID is there, but COVID is not the only thing that is killing people. If the president of Tanzania, by any chance, maybe at some point got COVID, and it was public that he's gotten COVID, and then he recovers from COVID, I also see him coming out and saying, but I've told you guys, yes, there's COVID, but COVID does not necessarily mean death. Yes, there's COVID, but it doesn't mean that, we now have to stop everything that we are doing. Look, I got COVID, I recovered, here I am, I'm moving on. There's a possibility that he could actually come out and say the same thing and say, I am a living example that you get COVID, you recover, and you move on with life. So, my fellow citizens, you could get COVID, you will recover, you will move on with life. And unfortunately, you die, pole sana to your family. There's also that possibility. People are just looking at it and thinking, if Magufuli were ever to get COVID, then he would change the way he speaks. Maybe not. But, I
think it would be highly irresponsible. Because, again, we also know that if it is the case and he did get sick and then he recovers and comes back to people and says, well, you see, I am fine. This thing is not going to kill you.
Yep.
It would be highly irresponsible of him to do that as well, because the same disease doesn't affect everybody in the same way.
Yep.
And you also have to deal with the reality that some people may get it and die. Some people may get it and because they have a weak immunity could actually suffer seriously from it.
Mm-hmm.
People could have underlying conditions. So there is nothing that he would be able to say that would make sense apart from coming out and saying, look, if it is him who is sick.
If
and
he were to get COVID.
Yes, if he were to ever get COVID and recover from it, if he's the one, the best approach, honestly, would for him to say, look, this thing can get anybody, and here's what we need to do to protect ourselves. It's what it has to be.
So let's push this, imagination and to the end and say, if Magufuli were to get COVID, right, and he sought treatment, what should the leaders of the EAC do with that with that reality? Because you remember we've talked about, so the leaders of this other village whose roofs are also feeling the rain have been quiet. Or sort of maybe they're talking to the president of Tanzania quietly and telling him, boss, but boss, you need to do something.
You need to do something about it.
As we are doing in our countries. What then can the leadership of the EAC come out and say, all right, so together we have seen what's happening in the region. Together we can now move forward towards making sure that there's vaccination happening in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Burundi. We can make sure that there's vaccination happening. We can make sure that also vaccination is rolled out across the border to our neighbor. Can they do that?
I think they should be.
The president of Kenya is now the chairman of EAC.
I think you should be able to say, look, guys, this is what we are dealing with here. What does a community do? What does the community actually do? Look out for the interests of everybody else in the community. That's one of the things that you're supposed to do. And if you find that one person is errant, let's just call it what it is. If you find that one person is errant, then of course you have the responsibility to rein them in and say, look, guys, the way in which you've been handling this thing is poor at best. We need to fix it. Not just because you dealing in your own petri dish there, but there's also the possibility that this could affect everybody else and the well-being of other nations.
Yeah.
Responsibility to making sure that you're protecting yourself while maintaining your sovereignty and whatever. However, you also have the responsibility of taking care of other people within the community. And if the problem is emanating from your country, then we also need to be concerned about how we're going to deal with it. And I think absolutely there should be a call-out session. Call out and say, this is not working. You need to do something better about this. At least even show to seem as though you were doing something. I don't think that there should be silence anymore. And it shouldn't be this thing, well, okay, so what are you doing? Then you if it is him, and then you come to another country to get well and then go back. What are the people in your country supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you telling them?
What are you telling them, basically? That these structures that you've set up in your country, which are so good that you don't even want any kind of external help or assistance when it comes to whether it's producing masks, whether it's bringing in vaccines, you've said stick to the traditional way of treating people. If it turns out that it is you who has then gone to another country to seek help, all these things that you've been touting about and telling your people to do, exactly on which foundation do you actually think you can stand? You've told your people to use traditional help. If it is actually you who has then come to Kenya, is that not a slap in the face to your people? What are you saying to them?
Well, it's nothing new when it comes to that and leaders flying out of their country to seek treatment. We see that in Africa. We see presidents going. Your own president in Nigeria, how many months was he out of the country seeking treatment?
Almost a year.
And it never becomes a question locally in a country that, Why is our president seeking medical treatment abroad?
Oh, it is. Big issue. Serious issue.
Serious issue to what point? To the point that
not that you're going to stop him from flying out, of course, but it's something that's being debated. But look at it. The Ministry of Health in Tanzania, they were drinking ginger for people to see on TV. And they were saying, we have our own local remedies for this thing. Do you see? It's a slap in the face. We have our own local remedies for this thing. We can produce things here in the country. Then the leader of the same government, please note how careful I'm being, if it is actually him that is in Kenya right now seeking treatment, you've just told your people over whom you lead that, please, our local remedies are good. So what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. Why fly out?
It should be treated in your own country.
With the traditional medicine that you've been telling your people. Or even in the hospital.
The same hospital that the vice president of Zanzibar was in. The same hospital that was it the finance minister of Tanzania was in?
Yes, in a local hospital.
Local hospital. Go to that same hospital.
Absolutely.
Go to Muhimbili.
Go to
that hospital.
Yes.
Get treated there. Don't fly out. And that message should also now come to our country as well and the countries in the region. You fall sick, seek treatment here. Make sure that, in fact, don't even go to private. Seek treatment
in the public hospital that you say that you're helping out for.
Direct. Do not go to public hospital. Do not go to private hospital. Do not go abroad. If you're in this country, you're a leader in this country, seek treatment in this country because that's what you should be doing. You should be getting treated here. Let's take a break at this point. 23 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room. We are broadcasting on SpiceFM 94.4 in Nairobi. Mombasa, it's 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu. Nakuru, 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret. Nyeri is 90.9 and Malindi is 97.7. We want to take a look at weather and traffic. When we come back, we speak about women empowerment in business and in career. Good morning.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Japan, biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also covered. Mention our course, you will not fail to get it. Visit our website today on www.studyinjapan-africa.com.
The
So
weather
we're looking
with
at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We will see then highs of 28 and lows of 15, 11 degrees and mostly sunny in Nyeri, highs of 25 and lows of 12, mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru, highs of 30 and lows of 12, highs of 26 and lows of 11 in Eldoret, highs of 31, lows of 19 in Kisumu. It's sunny in Kakamega at 14. We'll go to highs of 31 today and lows of 13. 32 will be the high in Mombasa. Light rain this morning still at 26. 26 also also the high, and 26, and we'll see the high going to 31 today in Malindi. 28 the high in Kampala. Rain showers now at 19. Dar es Salaam is also mostly sunny, highs of 32 and lows of 26. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 20, going to highs of 28 and lows of 14. 32 will be the high in Lagos today. The rain is not going to cool anything down at 27 now. And Kinshasa is cloudy right now at 25. We'll come down to lows of 24 and highs of 34.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so all the way from the SGR today on Mombasa Road, that's still quite heavy, and we're looking at the northern bypass as well from Maruroi and Ngomongo. This morning it is jam-packed, bumper to bumper, literally bumper to bumper. So if you're in the direction of the northern bypass, that's going to take some time to get out of this one today. All right, let's look at other areas coming into the city from Uhuru Highway, coming in from Langata Road and Ngong Road. It's slow, but it's moving. We don't have a bumper to bumper situation yet. Where we do is Kiambu Road, and it is jam-packed, then trying to join with the Thika Superhighway. So there we're looking at that problem this morning. We'll get through it though, that's for sure. Keep plugging away. Let us know where you might be stuck. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text us 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 28 minutes after 7. This is Ken.
Done right.
From the Situation Room. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the second hour of the show. We are on Spice FM, we are online, and we are also on KTN Home. As we continue the conversation with you this morning is Nduoko and Eric Latif. Our colleague C.T. Muga is away this week, but we'll be catching up with him, actually, trying to catch up with him in the next hour as we have a conversation around COVID vaccines. So this time, let's talk about MSMEs, youth and women, and the recovery strategy post-COVID. That whole word of pivot.
Right.
Yeah, that COVID phrase. How to pivot. And seeing then what is it that businesses, small businesses, micro, small, medium, especially those that are led by youth and women, how are they doing? How are they faring? How are they recovering? To have this conversation with us will be two ladies. One is Martha Cheruto. She is the Deputy CEO of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And will also be joined by Eva Muraya. She is a founder and president of Brand Strategy and Design East Africa. Let's start the conversation with Martha. Martha, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and nice listening in.
Right. So as we continue the conversation, we'll be talking about what the youth and women businesses have done and how they're faring, especially when it comes now to recovery from COVID-19 and what is happening on that front. If you just want to tell us about any programs that KEPSA, for example, has run in the last 1 year that focus on businesses that are run by women and youth, what are those projects that you've maybe focused on?
Thank you, Eric. There are several programs that KEPSA launched when COVID came in. And the whole intention was purely to ensure that the businesses continue. As you all know, KEPSA is the umbrella body for the private sector. And some programs that I can mention, just to pass by, is we did develop a program on mentorship and training, and this happened every Friday. What we have seen is that an interest, and even recently we had over 1,000 people just listening in and being taught on grant opportunities and how to develop proposals. Other programs that we came up with was providing finances, and these were loans. They did not require any collateral, all they were interest-free, and they were targeting over 400 MSMEs in the country. We have seen success with that. There are testimonials from those who benefited and actually appreciate the money that they received because that came in at the right time. Various items came in, and even onboarding them on programs on digital platforms. Like now we work with Timea, and I'm happy Timea will be with us. And it is because we're taking them through the e-commerce booster program. We're training our SMEs and our youth and women on digital platforms. We're teaching them how to make their product, how to be marketable, and even how to market. And through that, we also expose them to the different marketplaces that are available locally and outside. So those are just some of the programs that we do have at SCEPSA, and even bringing others, because now to the youth, what we're looking at is how do we ensure that they come into the graduate program, training opportunities, mentorship, and industrial attachment. So just generally, those are some of the projects that we have at SCEPSA that we're targeting. And we're looking at even over 2,000 MSMEs within the country. How do we create a better impact towards them and ensure that they grow, and promoting them that, and even looking at them, can they formalize this? Because we know 95% of businesses in Kenya are SMEs. So looking at that, how do we ensure that this 95% grow into multinationals who are also members of SCEPSA, linking them to the bigger manufacturers, bigger organizations, and encouraging them into the supply chain? Can they be incorporated in this bigger organization supply chain? So those are some of the items that we're just looking at.
We'll be having a conversation with Martha, and Martha Cheruto is the Deputy CEO of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. Also joining us on the line is Eva Muraya. She's the founder and president of Brand Strategy and Design, that's BSD East Africa. The conversation is about MSMEs, youth and women, and how we're getting out of COVID-19, especially for these businesses. Just like Martha has said, there are very many small businesses and small enterprises, many of them informal, that are run by women and youth, and there's support that is required for them. There's a lot of support that goes into the formal sector ordinarily, and then there's little support that goes to the informal sector, and even trying to get them formalized. But at this point, there's need to reach to everybody.
How do we? I think that's one of the questions that I think that on both sides, whether looking at the alliance and then other partners. I think before we go to Eva, Martha, how do we reach these businesses, these individuals who are running small businesses? What strategy do you use to actually get a hold of them? Because even when we saw things like, packages being released in the country, we had, raising up of hands saying, well, what about me? I didn't get a chance to participate. My name was not called. I did not get something that was offered. How then do we find all these people?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, there are various ways that we reach out to SMEs. One way that we do have as SCEPSA within our membership category is that we set up a specific category for SMEs. Now, this category involves both the startups and even the SMEs that have been there between 1 to 10 years, and they're different tiers. So that is one way of bringing them. The second one is now the outreach programs that we do have. The training programs that we carry out reaches to our platforms either through media, and that is the social media platforms, and even partnership. Like this is one platform that we can use together with Standard to promote the programs we have with SMEs. When we were launching the e-commerce booster recently, we were all over. We reached out on the conventional, we've done on the newspapers, we did on the digital platforms, and even informing people. Then the other thing that we also do is through the engagement we have with government. So our partnership with government enhances our call out to all MSMEs and informing them that SCEPSA is collaborating with government, and please come out and talk to them. So through those platforms and our members, because SCEPSA is a member organization, business associations are our members. So directly we speak to them and they take out the message to the bigger platform. We reach over 500,000 members within the country. And this is because we do have the corporate or individual members, and then business associations who come in with their memberships and they reach out to them. So that way we reach out to the whole country, and even engagement with the county. So when we look at that, that is one platform that we can do. We can still partner with others, and through development partners with the media fraternity and any other person that is willing to come in, and we will work with them. Even the education people, because we do have an education sector, and skills is necessary for the SMEs to grow. So working with the tertiary institutions is a platform that we can call on SMEs to come in and work with.
Eva, what are some of the challenges that you see? I mean, we're looking at these as specifically COVID times, and I think one of the big ones that jumped out at everybody is, capital, because folks are not walking into my little business to patronize me. Capital was a big one. What are some of the other issues that you see that then could receive support around this time and then also moving forward?
Thank you and good morning, and thank you for having us on this excellent show of yours.
Good morning.
We enjoy listening to you every morning. Now, straight into your question, traditionally, the reality of access to credit is real. But because of COVID, there are other imperatives that just must be brought onto the table. For example, the mental health and wellness of our entrepreneurs. Because you see, unlike the bigger businesses or the larger size businesses, these often are run by one or two or three individuals with a community of employees perhaps, and the disruption has been real. So some of the things that we have found ourselves dealing with is the wellness of the entrepreneur, because unless the entrepreneur, the visionary, the hands and feet, the dreamer of the enterprise is as good as normal, then you find that a lot else suffers. So that's one absolute fact. The other one, especially for women, has been issues around time poverty. COVID turned all of us into multitaskers, okay? So if I was running my business, perhaps it was a business, I don't know, call it to cater, or a school I was running, or just a financial services enterprise. I ended up home as a teacher to my children. The caregiving role became a lot more pronounced. Perhaps there were some decisions made that maybe if it's a day help coming in, and we saw that a lot in Nairobi and in the urban areas of Kenya, where many homes decided not to take the day help because they thought that was a way to transmit the virus. So the time poverty element became extremely aggravated, and that then compounded issues of just life-work balance. And sadly, that also meant that, and we saw that, Martha can confirm, last year there was such an escalation of domestic-based violence and gender-based violence. So you're an entrepreneur, you're time poor. Not only is it difficult for you to access credit or other funds in order to rescue your business, you're also dealing with things that are at your own home level. We would also say access to justice. So your contract has gone wrong, perhaps somebody will not have paid you, or whatever it is that would cause you to need to access justice. The court system last year took a break because it needed to, but then that compounded the realization of whatever your business aspirations within the confines of that contract would have been. Technical skills, it took us a little while to steady the boat, but like Martha has articulated, KEPSA was very quick in figuring out that if we are not able to train in class, we can offer trainings online. And the miracle of that is that as recently as this last Friday, we had over 1,000 entrepreneurs online, just listening to the lessons being taught. These are skills around entrepreneurship, and then every other Friday, like we will have this week, is mentorship. So the challenges have been various and unique, because I think the reality of wellness of an entrepreneur has never been as pronounced as it has needed to be now.
Yeah.
So that's really the reality that we have seen on the ground.
Every challenge comes with its own opportunities, and then there are success stories that will come out of it. Out of all those programs that you ran, are there some, crucial and good success stories that, you can say, this is what we saw, this is what we're able to help this particular grouping or this particular individual or this particular organization, and this is how they were able to emerge out of it, Eva?
Oh, wow, that's an excellent question. You know, I am amazed at our resilience as a people, as a Kenyan people. In fact, Kenyan entrepreneurs, kudos to you. Martha again will bear me witness. We have seen pivoting at another level. You are doing maybe, services for event management. Today you are making spices and things like that out of your kitchen and distributing through main retail stores like Naivas and Chandarana, etc. I'm extremely proud of some of that pivoting. I've seen that with a new brand in the market called Mama's. The other pivoting we've seen is that perhaps you used to supply sustainable furniture to the education system, and now you have pivoted, understood that people are spending much more time in their respective homes, and have begun to make amazing quality design for home furniture. And kudos to Shiro Waithaka's company, Fun Homes, that has recently, found a new curve. And there are many stories like that where entrepreneurs were probably doing one thing, and then now doing quite another. If I could plug, perhaps, I've seen BSB also more recently turn its whole energy into data management and data selling. We just recently launched the top 100 most loved brands by women in Kenya, collaborating with Ipsos. And that's just pivoting because things in our industry have been disrupted and now needing to move in a different direction. So Kenyans have demonstrated immense capacity to innovate and to re-engineer their propositions. And I just named just a few, but there are many, many others. So you can imagine if we took some intentional effort, both at a policy-making level, government, and then business associations such as KEPSA, to think, what do we learn from COVID's disruption, and how then can we create sustainable enterprises, because this is the future of Kenya. And to say that there isn't a single multinational in this world, if I can go global, that was never an SME. In fact, that was never a micro enterprise to start with. So like Martha earlier said, the agenda for KEPSA is to see these MSMEs not just remain that way as a regular reference point, but that we scale them and that they can employ and that they can offer services, products, and causes for this beautiful country of ours.
So Martha, I mean, we talk about the disruption that happened because of COVID. Do you then also see that there was a disruption in what people felt their traditional calling towards work or towards a business would be, and that the innovation, which I believe is much needed to spur on an economy, then was born because of this? Do you see that happening, and that could it then be the way in which business works going into the future?
Thanks. Indeed, COVID brought us to a different scenario. Remember, when we look at the digital era, we have always been talking about it, but I think COVID was just a catalyst that we needed for us to jump into it. So looking at the future of work, what has happened of the state and even what now the HR policies are coming up with is how do we incorporate flexible hours and even remote working? Initially, working from home was something that was out of the blue, but right now it is the norm. In terms of businesses, yes, there have been innovations. There are businesses that decided this has been our constant product all these years. But because of the opportunities that COVID came up with, is that we saw some industries coming in and starting to produce PPEs. We have seen even some SMEs coming up to produce sanitizers. Initially, that was not their area of expertise, but they structured their operations. They skilled their teams and even invited new people to come up and develop standards and quality for the product. You can remember we saw hospital beds. In Kenya, that was something that was not there. That happened. Ventilators, so many models came up, and even KEBS came in to check the standards of those ventilators. So looking at those opportunities, yes, there are many that are coming up. digitalization and digitization is the way to go. Right now, that is the way. You don't have to go to the office to do something. You can do it online. Access, look at e-commerce. People shifted. I can look at even the hotel industry. It was very common. You go to the hotel, you take your menu, and you eat. These same hotels came up with different services and started doing deliveries.
Yep.
Whoever thought of 5-star hotels doing deliveries at your doorstep.
Yeah.
So looking at that perspective, then it gives you that there are many opportunities. The world has moved. The era is here with us. So we have to prepare ourselves for that future. And KEPSA continuously working with the government, especially through the public-private dialogue platforms that we have. Eva has spoken about them. And even the gender and youth sector group that Eva chairs looks at the policies. What do we need to have in place to ensure that there's continuity and even accommodating the new ways of life? One thing I can just mention on the same is that as KEPSA, we've also, what is work in progress, is that we're developing agenda policy. Now, this will guide how our organization will function, how the country will function towards that. And maybe just alongside it, one thing that we did last year, and I've seen very good progress around it, is that we set up a call center, and that is 1196. So this call center started as a platform where information is shared. It was about giving information about COVID, what interventions are there, because we worked on the protocols and even we worked on the economic stimulus packages that the government shared out. And through that, we noticed there is an innovation that came up, the Wheels for Life. How do we support women during curfew period? And that's an innovation. So there was a platform that was created, we called 1196. A doctor is on the line to listen to you as a mother. When they realize they need to get to the hospital, an ambulance is sent to your place. And we worked with also the health facilities and different partners alongside it. And Teleska is our director at the call center and various partners. And the woman is taken to hospitals and they're supported. Now, again, through the same platform, we noticed calls that came in were about gender-based violence, as Eva has mentioned. So how do we come into that space and support these people? We developed a program on the gender-based violence. We partnered with Dan Susi. And so people also call in, especially men, call in and talk about it. So when we look at that transformation from just giving information initially and now providing services, it's something that tells you COVID has made us to really think very fast on our feet. Can we provide solutions to the existing problems and work with others? So partnerships come in strongly, collaboration. And not only that, I can also highlight something, is we did a project on coast. It is about sustainability. The whole project is called Coast, but at the same time, it took place in the coast region. And this is to see how do we transform the waste that we have to make sure that there are businesses for people. So the youth came in, the women were present. We took them through how to build, develop business proposals. We held their hand, training was done, and even mentoring and taking them through the whole process from the beginning to the end. And that we did with the county government of Mombasa. So looking at those opportunities are there. So innovation is coming out very well. Creativity that we did not see in this country is now coming up, and everyone is just happy. And even as we close, I can say it's interesting that within the last quarter, about 326 businesses were registered daily. That's massive. You expect a decline, but
in the number of new businesses.
Yes, new businesses came in. So, and then looking at again the demographics of the country, if the average age is about 19 years and majority like 75% are below 35 years, then we have room. These are the people who can rethink next 10 years by Vision 2030. What happens after? And this is the target group that we work with as KEPSA through the gender sector.
Indeed, as you say, Martha, there are many opportunities for new ideas to come up, and people are always sitting and thinking of new ideas, of new innovation, of how to position yourself as a business to grow. Then the other challenges would come in is access to capital, access to marketing and marketing advice, and how to manage that business. So as KEPSA, once you've done all these things and, brought in the ideas and engaged with people so that they can see where the ideas are, do you then support them to actually set up sustainable businesses that can survive during this COVID and post-COVID? Marketing is a key issue.
Yes. One strategic focus for KEPSA in 2021 is SME development. The other focus that we do have is the youth employment and even women enterprise development. So looking at it from that, it tells you that clearly we have noticed, yes, we have been working on them, but now our main focus is how do we drive these people? How do we drive them towards growing and holding their hands? As Eva indicated, the mentorship program is one of them because they could have ideas, but then how do they exemplify that idea into action and even monitoring them? That's one way. Access to capital, the projects we've had and the partners we've had, like working in MasterCard Foundation, and even recently we came in and we're working with Afrexim Bank. So these are places the institutions that have money that can finance this SMEs and even the larger corporates into expanding their scope. The other thing that we noticed through that, and for us to hold the hand, is through market access. How do they expand? Yes, we're looking at the Kenyan market, but are we ready for the bigger market? So taking advantage of the AfCFTA, now looking at our market as a global and continental, that you can sell within Africa, because it is now made in Africa, by Africa, whatever is made in Africa, you also buy it in Africa, and you go towards the continent. So giving them that access platform, and we have worked closely with the branding agency, that is Keproba. We do have an MOU with them, and they're setting up a directory also for all these SMEs, and we know where they are. Then look at their services, look at their products that they have. If we feel that they need an enhancement on the standard and the quality for them to reach the bigger market, then that becomes a training opportunity, and that works for them. The other thing that we can say we're doing in terms of the e-commerce program that we have is that we're looking at SMEs, and one of the media fraternity reporter came in and told us that what we will do, we will follow one SME from registration, because they register on our website, they're taken through a training, all the way to June. So you work with them and see the success or the challenges they face, and you go through it. Same thing that happened with the project we had in Coast that we worked with, is that we held their hand all the way, right from the beginning to the end. So those are the things that we do, and every day there's platform to think through. And going back to our members, doing surveys, can you tell us what more we can do
to help?
Yes.
Right. So then, for you, Eva, looking at the wealth of businesses, the wealth of individuals who've come knocking, are we looking at sustainable businesses? Are we looking at businesses that are being established now that can stand the test of time, and that in 10 years down the line we will see that these businesses that started out of a point of irritation almost are actually sustainable and can hold their worth?
I think the answer to that is that we hope so, because to be fair, entrepreneurship today in Kenya is not what it was 20, 25 years ago. We find that it is a lot easier to embrace the concept. When I was beginning as an entrepreneur, I was frowned upon, and in those days, if you moved into entrepreneurship, it was like you're a loser or you're a failure. You couldn't be in the professional circuit of the big 4, 5. You've ended up in business. But today, that's not the reality. People are leaving university to start their own businesses, or people are taking up business. Like you see when Martha talks about the over 300 newly registered businesses, I bet many of those belong to people who perhaps have suffered the restructurings that have been going on in corporate Kenya, and we were witnesses to that. So to your question, there is so much more available help today. And a tried and tested tool means that our community of KEPSA members, it's been delightful to see how many bigger corporates would offer themselves to come and mentor 500, 600, 700, 800, 1,000 people online on a weekly basis. So from the point of KEPSA, sustainability is a non-negotiable. We want enterprises to be incorporated and to very early understand the skill and gain the competency of growing their respective enterprise, because we want to challenge these enterprises to dream big dreams and even have ambition of listing on the securities exchange. In fact, that was a conversation that was had just last week about getting more Kenyan businesses to open up, whether it is under Ibuka or otherwise. So yes, sustainability must be. I have been enjoying a front seat at KEPSA, seeing different initiatives being put together in order to ensure that the life of an enterprise is sustainable, that you do not get a business to start and in 2-3 years, which is often the global statistic, it folds up. So yes, through mentorship, through skills gaining, through role modeling, through coaching, through training, these are the various ways that KEPSA is creating a tapestry of solutions so that enterprises not only survive, but they thrive.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us this morning. We've been having a conversation with Martha Cheruto. She is the Deputy CEO of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and Eva Muraya, entrepreneur, founder and president of Brand Strategy and Design East Africa, that's BSD. And you also sit as, what, are you the chair of the Gender and Youth Sector?
Yes, and I'm about to go into my board meeting in the next 2 minutes. So thank you for letting us off. Our monthly meeting is now. So thank you. It's been a great conversation. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so
much.
much.
And have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Time for us to take another break now on KTN Home and SpiceFM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be back shortly.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
So it's about making sure that these businesses then become sustainable, that the businesses don't just start. So all this time, during the last 1 year, we've seen a lot that has been done, a lot that's happening left, right, and center. But then, how do we make sure that these businesses that have been registered, that have started, will actually survive?
This is the thing. I mean, and that's a question, one of the questions that I was asking is that we can, a lot of these, we have to be honest, a lot of these businesses started as a result of COVID, came about as a result of irritation that I must do something. I need to have something to be able to survive. And so maybe that sustainability aspect was not being looked at the very beginning.
Yes.
But then we find that actually this could be a better deal than what you were doing when you had your 9 to 5, which you thought was working, or when you were operating a different business for which you have no patrons now anymore. But keeping them alive, I think, is what should be the important thing here. Not to say yes and, applaud that businesses have actually started and people have something to do, but that could be a sustainable source of revenue over the next 20 years.
And that this business now grows from being micro, small, it becomes a big business. It becomes a major employer. It becomes a sustainable business. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room. The next hour, we talk about vaccination. What's the stand of the Doctors' Union on vaccination? We've seen Catholic Doctors Association talking against vaccination. So what is it that the Umbrella Doctors Union says about vaccination? Good morning. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. .5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so we're still looking at thick traffic on Mombasa Road headed into the city. It's taking some time to get out of that one, but it's moving. So we're not at a bumper-to-bumper situation anymore, but quite a lot of traffic on the roads this morning. Coming off of Thika Road into the CBD, it's slow then at the Pangani Tunnel, then out towards Wangari Maathai will get you into the city without too much of an issue. Coming out of Westlands, it's jam-packed on Uhuru Highway all the way through to Nyeri Stadium and back in the other direction as well. Uhuru Highway is the one that's going to see us kept in traffic traffic for some time this morning. Everything else seems to be flowing smoothly without too much of an issue. The bypass is Eastern and Southern, and Red Hill doing well. Northern is where we have some issues this morning. Let's keep an eye out for that, okay? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter if you need to, and we'll text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room with you this morning is Eric Latif and Ndu Oko. Today's proverb: rain does not fall on one roof alone. That's rain. It doesn't fall on one roof alone. Okay? So, when rain falls on your neighbors, ukiona cha mwenzako akinyolewa, chako kitie maji.
You know, it rains sometimes in one area and it's not raining somewhere else, eh?
But in that area,
everybody in the area, their roof will rain.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. That's the whole conversation. So, about vaccination and the progress of vaccination so far. So, the vaccines arrived in the country when? On
Wednesday. Midnight.
Around this time last week.
Yes.
Vaccines arrived, taken to Kitengela Depot. Friday, vaccination rolled out formally at KNH, and then also the vaccines now are being distributed to the various regions. We have already started hearing from counties saying that they have received the vaccines, that they are already rolling out vaccination of their healthcare workers in their counties. And this is already happening there. So the whole conversation here then is everybody who should be vaccinated aware that they are about to get the jab? Is that information being given to the people in there? Because we're talking about a very select group of people. First of all, we're talking about frontline workers, healthcare. Frontline workers in healthcare are employees of the county government.
Yes.
And the national government. Okay. So it's very easy for a county, for example, to say we have received, like Kisii, I heard the governor of Kisii yesterday saying, we've received X number of thousands of doses. We are going to give out to our people who work in our health facilities. They already know who those are. And you already have a central point at which you can actually go and vaccinate. This is a health facility, so send. This health facility has X number of workers, send there. So the issue of, if we get to hear that, there's somebody who did not get vaccinated and yet they work in a health facility, then there'll be very many questions to ask.
So then maybe the issue of reluctance then will be brought in.
Yes.
That you know that you're supposed to go to point X to get your vaccination done. If you do not go, then the whole issue that had been, had been burning before, and people were saying, okay, well, because I don't know the makeup of this particular vaccine, then I am not going to go and get it because I don't know if it's actually going to protect me from getting this virus later on. Those conversations have already been taking place. People are now saying to themselves, and even health workers had been saying to themselves, okay, we don't know where this is from. We don't know. Information had not been shared with us. So then there's some reluctance in actually going out and getting it. I think it's a bit dangerous to be on that particular place during this conversation, especially when we're looking at something that could potentially be life-saving. So right now, as it seems or as it appears, if we're looking at county government, the information is being given that you should be working anyway, right? And if we are hearing from counties that vaccine already has been placed or will be placed at certain places, then you should actually know where you should go. It should not be an issue.
It shouldn't be an issue.
If you didn't show up, then
that's
it will
something.
be pointed towards reluctance.
But now here's the other thing. Now we're talking about those frontline workers, people who are working in the health facilities. Should there be some information that is given to them that you are not just telling them on it's upon you to decide whether you want to come, but be very deliberate in making sure that at least as many of them get to say yes to the vaccination. Because when you hear clinical officers asking questions here, doctors asking questions there, nurses asking questions there, then you have lab technicians asking their own questions, it means that you send these vaccines to a certain health facility, but the people in those health facilities will not.
Will not go. Look, I think that since here is a time where it should not be a suggestion. Right? Because we've been talking about arming your frontline workers for the last 1 year. That's what we've been discussing. This should not be a discussion. It should not be a suggestion. It should not be an invite. I think that we should be as bold as making it a demand of healthcare workers, of frontline workers right now, to say that you, who continues to be in the frontline, must be protected. In order for you to serve other people, you should actually have that barrier or that shield. And that's what they've been crying for all this time, if you want to be honest. Those are some of the things that they've been crying for.
They've been going on strike because they want to be protected. They want to be safe.
So here's this thing. And yes, I think it should be a demand. I don't think it should be, please come and get this vaccine.
The choice will be yours ultimately, but the vaccine is...
No, we are taking a proactive role in making sure that you, the frontline workers are protected so that you can also then serve the rest of the population when the time comes. It's one of the things that you've been asking for all this time. Here we are filling that role and making sure that it's actually done. I don't think it should be, or if you like, or if you have some time, please hop on over to the next, to the nearest level 4 or 5 hospital and get your jab. No. Here is the list. This is your name. Have you done it? No. Go get it done.
Go get it done.
And I think it needs to be as deliberate as that.
I agree with you. I think because if we say that healthcare workers, first of all, if we can say that people who work in the health facility may not be knowing a lot about how a vaccine works, but at least they work in a healthcare facility. So you can bring them together and explain to them. But somebody who's gone through training as a medic, they then know what a vaccine is. Nurses know what a vaccine is. Doctors know what a vaccine is. Clinical officers know lab technicians know what vaccines are. So you cannot be saying that now we are starting to teach them, or by talking about 60% efficacy, 80%, this is what it necessarily means. That's knowledge that if you didn't get that in school, please go back to school. But here's the thing. We have vaccines. They're in the country. It's being rolled out, and you are on the list.
And you know.
If you're not getting vaccinated, just resign.
And you know the benefits of this. Like you're saying, you are in the medical field. You know the benefits of this. It should be you at this point. Hey, guess what? Taking this role and saying, actually, you know what, guys? We should actually go and get this thing done. Taking the initiative and encouraging others to go and actually get it done.
Have we seen words coming out of the medical fraternity talking about raising questions and raising doubt as to whether they'll participate in this exercise?
Yes, we did, actually. We saw the question did come up. It was a question. The lady's name, I fail to remember her name right now. But she did say that, how then do you expect me to take a vaccine that I don't know anything about? Now, the danger that lies therein is that everybody who's been listening to you all this time, and then hears you saying something like this about the vaccine, probably is going to be discouraged about taking. And then you lead also one of the strongest unions when it comes to medical work in this country, whereby the encouragement should be that people should go and get vaccinated. What we are hearing now is that there's doubt that's being cast on this vaccine.
On whether this is the right thing to do, whether it's a way to go. Let's bring in the Doctors Union Secretary General, Dr. Chibanzi Mochonda. He is the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners Dentist Union. Dr. good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Niko salama.
So we will go straight into the conversation that you've heard what we're talking about. We're talking about vaccines, and as we wait for you to be able to join us on video as well, there's a lot of disquiet among healthcare workers over a number of things surrounding the vaccine. What is this all about?
I think first and foremost is to say that, it's a good thing, and it's a great thing that our country is among the few countries that have been able to have access to this COVID-19 vaccine through the COVAX alliance.
Yes.
I think the only issue that perhaps you've had amongst the healthcare workers is that they did not feel involved.
Mm-hmm.
And feel involved in the sense that, yes, we knew a vaccine was coming, right, from last year.
Mm.
The sensitivity, and I heard how you were discussing this, and I totally agree with you that, like, for someone like me, I do understand what a vaccine is, I do understand how a vaccine works,
yeah,
that. But let us also remember that this is a novel vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And healthcare workers are equally reading a lot around this vaccine.
Yeah.
So there are certain adverse effects that come with the vaccine that a number of the healthcare workers are hesitant about, because questions arise. If I do get certain adverse effects, you're supposed to perhaps get mild symptoms, but what happens if I get the severe symptoms?
Mm-hmm.
You see, and these questions are not just in Kenya, but it's globally. In fact, the US is having a very big problem of vaccine hesitancy amongst doctors and other healthcare workers. The WHO has actually has agreed to set up a compensation fund for those who get serious adverse effects of the COVID-19 vaccine through the AstraZeneca, through the COVAX facility. So these are the concerns that are there. And then the second thing, of course, was there wasn't adequate communication. Before the vaccine got here, where you're getting vaccinated, how is the whole program going to be rolled out? If you read the National Deployment Plan for Vaccines from the Ministry of Health, it is very elaborate on how they're going to roll it out, how they're going to engage healthcare workers, how they're going to educate perhaps those who need education, how they're going to carry out the awareness campaigns. All that did not happen. You see, so the vaccine lands last week, pop, and calls are coming. Come, get vaccinated. You get I hope you get what I'm saying. And that's where now the challenge becomes.
How would it have been different, Dr. How would it have been different? So are we looking at a reluctance here, or are we just saying, okay, people are in limbo because they don't really know what to do? So now that the counties are rolling this out and they're saying, actually, come and get vaccinated, are we seeing a problem there? I can understand that there was a need for proper communication and in terms of a plan of how this was supposed to be done. But now that we have counties talking about come and get this done, what's the challenge in actually going and getting it done?
Well, as I said earlier, and let me also be very clear that as KMPD and as the doctors, we do support the rollout of the vaccine. But as I said earlier, where we are now, it's not all lost. I think the most important thing is getting to engage the healthcare workers in the facilities. We always have what you call continuous medical education, CMEs. Let them be talked to, let them be explained to, and let them know that if you do get certain adverse effects, this is how you're going to progress. You're going to get care at this point. Should you get adverse effects and you need hospitalization, then it means that your cost of care out of this vaccine, for treatment and all that, is going to be catered for. Because you're coming from a point where healthcare workers, remember, are on the front line, and we've had very, very, very horrid experiences of getting COVID and not getting treatment, access to treatment, and all that. So some of the issues are still there. So if you're going to roll the vaccine and let the healthcare workers again go through the same experiences, that's where you're going to have a problem. So as it is now, there's a lot of engagement with the healthcare workers. It's not because they don't know what the vaccine is. Remember, the others who have also heard were talking of preferring a different vaccine and not what is available locally. So that discussion needs to happen with healthcare workers. We cannot just assume that we'll command them like sheep and they will go. I know healthcare workers myself. Yeah, and that's why I come out and I say, let us engage them. Let us talk to them and get that buy-in.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on this, Dr. What exactly is it that needs to be said to them because now that it seems that a few steps have been jumped, and which is understandable, but what now would health workers want to hear that would make them be encouraged then to go ahead and get this? Because we talked about frontline, health workers are involved, security agencies involved, as well as teachers. Okay, so what message then needs to be given to healthcare workers to say, okay, fine, we're on board with this, let's go? What needs to be said?
I think for the healthcare workers, there's need for a lot of assurance on that issue of adverse effects, monitoring, reporting, and eventual treatment for if you do get any form of adverse effect that requires comprehensive treatment. I think that, to me, that is the most important thing that I see and needs for the healthcare workers to be doing. And of course, the fact that then it's very clear that this is how we're rolling it out. That very simple things for me, from where I sit, that will get them on board.
What would that then be? I mean, if you develop any adverse effects or side effects after the vaccination, so you'll be taken to hospital. Are you talking about whether you'll be covered, whether there'll be a medical cover for this, or are you asking whether there is capacity to deal with that?
Yeah, so let's look at our COVID situation. Already we've seen, if you go to the extreme end of your COVID situation, of those with severe symptoms, the ICU capacity is getting full. Not full really, but it's already getting there. So the experience is what I was talking about, that for those who experience adverse effects, last year there was this push and pull. Can we even have healthcare facilities, rather space for the healthcare workers once they get COVID-19 and they need treatment? So these concerns are still there. These concerns are still there. They were dismissed somehow, but these concerns are still there. And so these are concerns that need to be dealt with. If you look at treatment, fine, we have NHIF, but we still have the same issues of non-remittance in sub-counties. And so then you're telling people who, if you get a disease, yes, you'll get treated, but this is how you get treated through NHIF, but then they're already dealing with, in some counties, dealing with situations where the cover is not running, it's not active. So these are and this is what I'm saying, that the vaccine might be unrelated to the issues that healthcare workers have, if you look at it from that angle, but it is also directly linked.
But I think at the same time, Dr. you guys are introducing the union politics into the issue of vaccination, because now when you bring in, what happens when an ordinary citizen, a police officer, for example, develops the same effects? What happens if a 50-year-old and above develops the same effects, the side effects? That question the way it appears, the way you're framing it, is you're still pushing for the plight of your union members, as opposed to saying, okay, as a country, we are rolling out the vaccination. We know that this is a novel vaccine. We don't know how it may react to the people. If it reacts, this is what we propose should happen to anyone, whether you're a doctor, a police officer, a cleaner in a hospital, an elderly person, any member of the public. But when you bring it to say, then, doctors, we are hesitant. The doctor hesitancy is because we don't know whether we are going to get our dues or whether we're going to get our position in a public hospital. That sounds very selfish.
Eric, I've heard you. And I like what you said, that what happens to the police officer, what happens to the teacher should they get adverse effects, where do they go? And where I was coming from was basically discussing it from a point of the people that I represent. But that is a general talk out there. Police might not say it because perhaps they don't have the voice like us through unions to say it. I hope you do get me. The elderly might not be able to say it because they don't have that voice that will actually air these concerns.
Okay.
And let me be very clear. There's no politics here. I think we live in a country where you should not ask questions. And that's what I'm finding very difficult in this country nowadays, where you should not ask any questions. Just do what is there. This is being done. Just move. And for me, and that's why I say, if healthcare workers associations, unions had this discussion in the ministry, even before the vaccine landed in our country, we will not be hearing all these sentiments.
What proactive
I'm
steps?
not scared. I'm not scared of taking this vaccine.
What proactive steps, Dr. Terry?
Let me just finish. If anything, I am willing to go out and engage the community on why we need this vaccine. As KMPD, we are willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are willing to actually engage communities, have engagement with the communities, and explain to them what the vaccine means, why there is need for vaccination.
And so my question is, what proactive steps have you taken to engage with A, the Ministry of Health, and B, the team that is managing the vaccine rollout led by Akwale? Have you made any effort to reach out to them to say, here is our proposal? We have read the rollout plan and we see these are the gaps that maybe need to be addressed, and this is what we propose should happen.
Well, the engagement was just towards when the vaccine was about to land into the country. Remember, initially we were not sure when it was coming, but by last week, those are some of the engagements you actually initiated, and where we are, as I said earlier, that we are actually willing to engage the communities on this matter, just to make sure that we have vaccine uptake in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So now here we are, Dr. And again, I'm going to ask, we're moving forward, right? We're going into a time where nobody else can get this vaccine until this group of people does in this country. And nobody else will get it until this first cohort of people is sorted out. What kind of assurance can we get to know that, this first round will go through successfully before any, arrangements for new ones are coming in? Granted, the debate or the engagement did not happen before they got here. Now they are here. And in terms of engagement right now, it's looking quite dicey in terms of how that's going to happen. How realistically do you think a conversation can be had about the safety or adverse effects of a vaccine that is already here and they're already asking a group of people to go ahead and take it? Do you really see that happening? And how can people be assured that they can get on the line if the first group of people still kind of, it's not happening?
What I see is your ambassadors must be healthcare workers, the frontline workers, including the security, including many things. The first group of frontline workers, because these are supposed to be the advocates for the rollout across the country to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And the issues that are being, perhaps the concerns and that mamas that are coming out are not complex issues. If we do, like in the counties, what I've seen, as it's being rolled out, as I said earlier, in the facilities, before the rollout, the healthcare workers talks to and they have that assurance and they take the jab and then they come out and they must be facilitated now to engage the community. It has to be some form of campaign, vaccine campaign, get vaccinated, form of campaign. Let the healthcare workers be facilitated. Not if perhaps we say union plays too much politics, so that's what is always being said. Let the healthcare workers, let my doctors go talk to Kenyans on the TV, on radio, and let them understand this and let them also engage the community. That's what I was saying. As KMPDU, we are actually willing to facilitate convenings with the community, the community health workers, perhaps, who have direct linkage to people in the community and some members of the public to just have this discussion about the vaccine. And I'm saying this, remember, because before the vaccine came, there was a very long period of false information, misconception, controversies about the vaccine. That has stuck in people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a long period of information that is false, that is full of controversy about this vaccine, or we want to exterminate the African people. So that information has permeated into people for for the greater part of last year. And then come in the next year, this year in February, March, you're like, boom, here, have a vaccine. You will face that obstacle, and it must be seen from that angle.
Okay. Let's take a break at this point. We're having a conversation with Dr. Chibanzi Mochonda. He is the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union. We are talking about vaccine hesitancy coming from various quarters and various cadres of the professional sphere. Some doctors have raised issues about it, the Catholic Doctors Association, for example, or some doctors as well saying the same who are not also members of this association. Some teachers have raised concerns. Some security people, personnel have raised concerns privately on the issue of this vaccine and how it's being rolled out. That is what we are discussing and what needs to be done to make sure that everybody is on board so that this program can then happen as it should. 26 minutes after 8, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
SpiceFM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Japan, biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also covered. Mention our course, you will not fail to get it. Visit our website today on www.studyinjapan-africa.com.
All right, before we take a look at the weather, the European Tour has decided to honor Kenya's golfing community with a historic doubleheader in the form of 2 back-to-back international golf tournaments on Kenyan soil. So if we begin with the first one, that's going to be the Magical Kenya Open from the 18th of March to the 21st of March. This will be at the Current Country Club. And then a few days later, from the 23rd of March to the 26th of March, there will be the Kenya Savannah Classic. This is the latest addition to the European Tour. This is from the 23rd to the 26th of March. Both taking place in March, both taking place at the Current Country Club. Now, KTN has partnered, Standard Group have made sure that you will be able to follow all the golfing action live on KTN Home and KTN News and a live stream on Standard Digital. Both events are supported by Safaricom, Vulcan Wireless, Copycat, the Sports Art and Social Development Fund, Current Country Club, Johnny Walker, Keringet and Hemingways. In the meantime, grab a copy of the Standard newspaper or follow us on our digital platforms and you come out on top of a safari tour. Again, to gain the right to represent Kenya on both the Magical Kenya Open and the Kenya Savannah Classic. This will be taking place later this month.
Are you ready? Okay.
SpiceFM. The weather with SpiceFM.
All right, so we're looking at a few clouds in Nairobi this morning. We'll go to highs of 28 today. 25 will be the high recorded in Nyeri. Sunny conditions at 15. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 17. Highs of 30 and lows of 12. 26 will be the high in Eldoret. It's partly sunny at 15. 21 and mostly sunny in Kisumu. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 19. 31 will be the high in Kakamega. 22 and mostly sunny at the moment. Light rain in Mombasa still continues at 27. Highs of 32. We'll see highs of 31 in Malindi. Malindi, mostly sunny conditions at 28. It's mostly sunny in Kampala at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 19. Where in Dar es Salaam, it's partly sunny at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26. We're looking at 22, sunny conditions in Johannesburg, highs of 28 and lows of 14. Light rain in Lagos at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 27. And it's sunny in Kinshasa at 24 to go to highs of 34, come back down to lows of 24. Okay, yes, and there's still some on Mombasa Road today heading out into the city. We're not looking at anything too terrible right now. The northern bypass where we had those issues earlier on, still moving slowly, but it's moving all the same. So the service lanes have been doing pretty good today, especially on Thika Road. Coming off of Kiambu Road is still pretty slow. Limuru Road, as you're trying to get into the city and you're moving past the village market, there's a bit of a bumper-to-bumper situation there, but it's moving for most parts right now. Uhuru Highway then. Now is the time that we see a lot of traffic between the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, then out towards City, and then out towards Westlands in both directions. So that's something to look out for. Talk to us if you need to. Shall we do this on Twitter, SpiceFM KE, or text 40127.
Spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
It's
right.
28 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on SpiceFM. We are online, SpiceFM KE on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter. And we're also on KTN Home for the next 28 minutes or so. Having a conversation about vaccine hesitancy, we have seen. So there are some doctors who've come out to say, issue of vaccine. There are some doctors who've said, okay, yes to the vaccine, but I want more information. For example, I want to know, when am I getting vaccinated? I also want to know, should I develop severe symptoms or any adverse effects after getting vaccinated? Then what happens? And we've raised these issues actually before in terms of the communication plan. So yes, the plan on how the rollout was going to happen was very good. Was there an accompanying communication strategy that said, this is how information will be given to the people? The key stakeholders. Who are the first stakeholders? First stakeholders are the first people who are going to get vaccinated. Then we also have the general public. To deal with all that, to remove the rumor that has been circulated in the community about what vaccine is likely to do, what this particular vaccine has, we need to have had a proper communication. And now if we haven't gotten there, then that's why you then see maybe doctors coming out to say, okay, I want to be vaccinated, but I have some questions. I want to be vaccinated. And the next, after I get vaccinated, I'll now start participating in vaccinating others.
Sure.
And they will come to me with those questions. So what am I going to tell them? That's why we're having a conversation with Dr. Chibanzi Mochonda, Secretary General of KMPDU. He's now been able to join us on video as well. Dr. Ari, it's good to see you as we continue with this conversation.
Yes, Eric.
So, if we were to go by what you were saying earlier, the thing is KMPDU officially is all for vaccination. KMPDU has not said no to vaccination.
Very much so. We have not said no to vaccination. We have said our members should get vaccinated. But the concerns that are coming out of our members also need just to be addressed, and they are not complex issues. And let me be very clear, because I've already seen that angle of saying union politics. There is no union politics here. You're talking about people's lives. You're talking about vaccination. You're talking about a situation that has valid concerns. I think one of the things that I also wanted, and I was saying, was that looking at what happened in South Africa, where you had a variant of the COVID virus, and the AstraZeneca becoming ineffective. The variant is also with us in the country. So you have these concerns, and these concerns are very valid based on what is happening in other countries, what are the experiences. So I think just to be clear is that we are not opposing the vaccine as KMPD. All you're saying is, yes, let's get people vaccinated, but let's also provide them with as much information. Let us also get them actively involved in this process. And if they do, they'll be your ambassadors, A good example of which we kept saying and we kept trying to engage initially with the universal healthcare plan, where we said the ambassadors to UNC will be the healthcare workers if you involve them fully, if you let them participate fully. And it's the same thing we're seeing here. So basically, there's nothing complex about this matter. I think if we sit and we all agree on how we are rolling it out together and we are moving around it, we are moving out to engage the communities, it will be a very, very, very seamless process.
Have there been calls for this? I mean, I know it shouldn't have to be, but with what we are faced with currently, have there then been calls to those people and departments concerned to say it is necessary for us to have a sit down and you share this information with us, regardless of whether the vaccines are here or not? It's not too late. Have there been calls for that?
Yes, so I like the fact that you say it's not too late, and I agree with you. So far those calls have not been made, and even now, when I speak, I'm not speaking as myself. I'm speaking on behalf of people who I'm engaging and who I represent and who I also listen to their concerns. In most departments in the facilities, they've not really had that discussion of the vaccine. I think yesterday, let me give you a very good example of yesterday in one of the groups in which, where I work, what I saw was a message of one of the doctors put there that go get vaccinated from tomorrow at this room. A WhatsApp message. Yep. That's how the information is passing out to the doctors. So let's be real here, Eric, as I told you earlier. If that's how you're going to pass information, you will set up that place, but how many will go?
Okay.
If you have a population of 100 healthcare workers.
I hear you, Doc. I hear you, Doc. And I want to now put you back on the spot and say, as leadership of KMPDU, as leadership of the Clinical Officers Union and nurses and the other healthcare workers, have you engaged, not with the government, but amongst yourselves and said, this is what we'll go with to the government? If you received a call today from the ministry and you told, okay, guys, you've been saying this, come, let's now hear you out. Do you have that ready and saying, this is what we propose in terms of communication? When you say vaccines have arrived, let's say in Mombasa County, and all the healthcare workers in Mombasa County need to be informed, this is how we propose that information is sent out to the people. This is how we propose that information is then managed. This is after they've come to be vaccinated. This is how we propose that data is captured. If there are any concerns, this is how we propose that information is also captured. Do you have that yourselves?
Yes, we do. Eric, I'll be very clear. For us as KMPDU, let me speak on behalf of KMPDU, this is something that we already have. And so the next step, of course, is to make sure that we engage as many of our members as possible. Not an easy feat because it has to be scheduled. You can't just be holding. We have over 5,000 doctors in the country as a membership, and the time frame wasn't really clear in terms of when we were expecting the vaccine. So even us engaging them fully, all of them, has not really been very practical. But just to say that even as we're engaging them on such issue of a vaccine, they have their concerns, and then now they start asking you very difficult questions on the issue that I said earlier. And so you can't, as the union, give them assurance of you'll tell them, of course, we have NHIF, they'll tell you, but very practical ways, like, look, my NHIF is not active. Where do I get treated? So these are things that are not union politics. This is information that is coming from engagement with the members. But once we get on board the government officials, the county officials, to come on board and actually also give that assurance and give that clarification, I think we'll be home and dry.
So you say that you already have like your own draft SOPs. Can you just take us through them? So let's say the vaccine has arrived in a certain county. I'm going to use the example of Mombasa County. So according to you, what should happen?
Well, there was the setting up of vaccine deployment teams, which involved the healthcare workers. That was the first step. If you look at the deployment plan, once you have these teams, it's secondly now to go into each facility, especially the main facilities where the vaccines are going to be domiciled. is make sure that all these healthcare workers, not just the doctors in that facility, we've used Mombasa. Let me use now Coast General, for example, as a hospital. It's a level 5 hospital. So how many of the healthcare workers there are aware that the vaccine is here and you're able to take the vaccine? So it means you have engagements with them. And every morning, this can be done every morning. You bring on board maybe, let's say, because of the COVID situation, maybe 30 healthcare workers on board into the boardroom, and you have a discussion with them about the vaccine, and then you tell them, okay, fine, are we ready to take the vaccine? Now let's take the vaccine. It will have to be continuous. It is not going to be a one-week event. It's going to be a very continuous process. Once these 30 take up the vaccine and they're assured of all their concerns have been answered and they're very much on board, then it means that also now has a snowball effect on the others. Oh, you took the vaccine. There's this concern. Then now you see the information now starts going around. In case of any effects that perhaps need monitoring, there must be, the clinics that are set up for the vaccine be set up, and so that you have information. Another way of also doing it is basically just having very, very small pullouts. We're in the digital age. You can basically just do a digital PDF where you basically answer the concerns that are raised by the healthcare workers, and you pass it amongst themselves, and that information moves around. So I know that coming out and saying that there's hesitancy looks like I'm perhaps opposing, but I know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not really opposition, but I know I'm talking, and if there's one thing I'll never be scared is to, or even not think about, is saying what is on the ground, because that has to be said. It's one thing for me to come out and say, okay, fine, we'll have the vaccines, the healthcare workers will take the vaccines, and then 2 months from now, you see a scenario where the vaccines have been lying in there and the uptake has been low. Then questions will arise. Why is the vaccine uptake low? You see, so these are concerns that must be said from the start. So then now we move this process. It opens up that space for, okay, fine, let's interrogate how we're going to plan to roll out this, and how do we get them on board, and how do we get them become advocates for the greater public. Yeah.
Okay. So then, do you think a call would come soon, even if it's from the unions, from health workers generally? Do you think then the call will come soon to the departments involved, Ministry of Health, whoever sits in those positions that needs to have this engagement, to say, all right, guys, can we come together and have this discussion? Do you think that will come soon? Because like we said, vaccines are on ground. County governors are already asking folks to come out. And the people he's talking to, obviously, are the frontline workers, right? So will these talks happen? Will they take place soon?
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite positive that will happen very soon, because you wouldn't want to have procured vaccines, over 1 million doses, and then let the vaccines just lie idle, rather have a very low uptake amongst your target population. So yeah, I do believe that this call is coming through soon. If not by end of this week, by next week, if possible.
And once the conversations begin, in your estimation, if for example now the union is engaged and it's involved, and then you're able to help in disseminating the information, you're able to help in responding to some of these FAQs that will come from the doctors, what kind of difference would there be between if the union is not involved in terms of the speed of actualization of the vaccination versus if the union is involved?
Well, what I can say is that if I'm to talk about my members, we have a very good amount of, very big percentage of the doctors would also, if we do get involved, it sparks the conversation very much deeply amongst ourselves. And then now that's where we pass the information. You rightfully said earlier that you've seen associations, you've seen groups of doctors. If you go to social media right now, where I have very many doctor friends, and those who are putting it boldly that we don't need the vaccine, we already got COVID. In the country, there is hard immunity. No, this is real. So, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking of things that people want to I'm not politicizing anything here. I'm just talking of what's real. So if that's what you're seeing already on social media platforms of the doctors who you'd want to be the agents and the first, target population in terms of uptake, then you have to be alive to that and actually handle it. And so for us, if we do get involved, it sparks that conversation very much amongst my people. And with that, then we're able to bring in the experts. In fact, I'm willing, next week, I think I'm looking at trying to get a forum where we'll have very many doctors, because also getting them easily is not together as one is not very easy. But once they do get that platform, I want to actually bring on board some of the vaccine experts, including those from the Ministry of Health, to basically just have that discussion and pass that information to the doctors. And that way, then you would have actually struck that conversation and you would have gotten them involved. That is key.
Dr. Mochonda, you know, when you've said that, and it's true, there are doctors who are even on social media saying, you don't need to get the vaccine now. Look, it's only 60%, 70% efficacy. So what happens with the other 40%? It brings us to where we started with the conversation with Ndu and saying, this is somebody who has actually been trained in this field. And they go ahead and say something like this. Should this be allowed to be happening? Is this deliberate misinformation, or is it actual lack of awareness by somebody who's been trained? You've gone to university, you've spent so many years, and then you come out and say, you don't need a vaccine, you already got the virus. What am I missing?
Eric, you're not missing. I had you on that point earlier, and you're not missing anything. But let us also remember that we are all humans, and you'll have controversial. You've seen how the Catholic doctors came out with that statement. Very controversial, you know, and that's just how the world is to me. And for dealing with such people, you have to engage them. In terms of efficacy, the 60-70%, all that. That's going to be a discussion, because there are those who are saying that, and I know some who say very clearly that I prefer the Pfizer vaccine and not the AstraZeneca vaccine. But as a country, what are we able to afford? What do we have? How did we get? And that's how we landed with the COVAX alliance and now have the AstraZeneca vaccine in us. So you see, that country perspective also has to be brought on board. And you know, you might think that people like me might have the country perspective very easily. But people out there, including some of the doctors, are very well learned, which is true, might not see it from that country perspective. They look at it from a point of purely clinical perspective, you see. So that gap has to be bridged in between. So then now you're able to, okay, fine, we have this, because the country is only able to afford this vaccine, and we move forward from here. And perhaps in the future, we'll be able, once the other vaccines are available, we'll be able to have these vaccines. Of course, the whole issue of private sector, where you're thinking, I think the country is slowly thinking about also having it rolled out in the private sector. And in the private sector, you could have actually the Pfizer vaccines, the much more expensive vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson coming on board in the private sector, being available in the private sector. What are you going to have? You're going to have a number of the healthcare workers also moving out to the private sector, going to pay for that because they feel that's a much better option than what you have here in the public facility, you know.
Okay, so now, if you want to look, these conversations are taking place amongst doctors, right? Upon whom a lot of trust is put up on by the rest of the population, who in some cases are anxiously waiting to be able to, get in line. What should be the message to Kenyans at large? Yes, doctors are Kenyans as well, and medical workers as well. But now I'm talking about the rest of the population who has not been tabulated, who's not been counted now in terms of when they will have access to the vaccines. How should they then view all of this? And the questions they're asking now is that if doctors are asking questions, should we also be asking questions? So do you see the kind of suspicion that creeps in here? And then also in terms of then when will their wait, when will their need also be met?
Well, the first thing to say is that questions are going to be asked right from the start, right from the outset. And I say this because for the greater part of last year, there was a lot of misconception, myths, controversies about the COVID-19 vaccine. So the questions are going to be asked regardless. We are here, we have the vaccine. So moving forward is to try and reduce these questions from your target group, who is the first group, start moving to the public. It's going to be much more easier for the public to take it up. I believe letting questions being asked is very healthy, if you ask me, because then now it opens up the space where people now are able to air their views and they get information. And once they have the information, and they make informed decisions to proceed with the action of taking up the vaccine. And I'm talking about this more so in the public, with the greater public, as opposed to the population of healthcare workers and the other frontline workers. So for the public, they must have that avenue of asking questions. So the question I'll put here is, have you seen any avenue open up for the public to ask questions, apart from you in the media who take it up as a public debate and, okay, fine, let's have this discussion about vaccines. But is there anywhere where a member of the public can basically just go and find out more about the COVID-19 vaccine? We don't have that yet.
The answer is absolutely no. Yes.
Pardon?
The answer is no. There's no platform. There is no information that's coming out to say the COVID vaccines are in the country and this is what's going to happen. We expect, for example, this first rollout to take place between this time and this time. And you, as a person who belongs to this category, you can now expect yours to come at this point. We don't have that. It hasn't been, apart from the point where we engage with the government, they don't come out proactively to tell us. So there is your answer.
And that's the point that has to, and that's the point I'm also trying to make here. That let us engage the public. I mean, we have very many ways. You have media, you have social media, you have communities that can be engaged. Small ways of just engaging the community and letting them know that, okay, fine, this is a vaccine, this is what we anticipate, this is the rollout plan. And let us also be honest with Kenyans that it's a way to get vaccinated, the greater public, perhaps towards the end of the year. Let them know that. So that gives you a lot of time between now and the end of the year to filter out the concerns, to have those discussions with them. That by the time it lands here, we do not find ourselves in a similar situation that you're finding ourselves now with other frontline workers.
Okay, so do you think that this information will be shared? Do you think that there will be this engagement? I mean, you talk about plans to say, okay, by the end of this week, we're going to stretch out a hand and say, please tell us what's going on. Let's engage in this manner. Do you think the information will be shared? One. Two, do you think then also it could pave the way for future sharing of information, that whereby you see, it could be that Ministry of Health and others feel overwhelmed by the current situation, and that's why they felt, okay, maybe we've not had time to sit and engage. So then maybe taking a proactive role, even now and in the future, do you think that as this information comes out, then we will go towards a smoother transition? Because hopefully in the next year, more and more Kenyans would have been vaccinated, all based on this information. So do you see that happening?
Well, it's not purely up to me, but I think the ministry needs to listen. Because I can tell you for a fact, end of this week, you're going to see the civil society groups coming up requesting for information on vaccines. I've already seen it. It's something that has already been planned. You see, and I'm aware. So when the civil society starts coming out that way, then it actually rises the profile of the discussion in the public. And perhaps they'll say, I don't know how much they've engaged the ministry in their own way trying to get this information, because if they have and the ministry hasn't really engaged them or brought them on board, then it's going to create a very difficult scenario for the vaccine uptake in the greater public. And to me, that's the point of entry. You have civil society groups that are asking, you have human rights groups. Whether you like them or not, they represent people and they must be involved in this discussion, and they must have this discussion and be passed on with all this information that they're asking, because they're asking on behalf of the greater public. And once that is done, it becomes a very seamless process for me. But if we look at, we are government, this is just people who are making noise, we will not get anywhere.
Dr. Chibanzi Mwachonda, thank you very much for joining us this morning, talking about vaccine rollout of the vaccination in the country and what's happening and the hesitancy that we see from various sectors of the population. Asante sana for speaking to us. We'll hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doc.
Always a pleasure indeed. 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. The conversation continues on SpiceFM. You can tune in to SpiceFM 94.4 in Nairobi. Mombasa, it's 87.9. Kisumu, 102.5. 96.0 in Nakuru. Eldoret, 96.7. Nyeri 90.9 and Malindi is 97.7. We've been live on KTN Home since 7 o'clock, now coming up to 5 minutes to 9. You can join the conversation on SpiceFM because we continue in the next hour. In the next hour, the question that we'll be asking ourselves is, all this land that we have in Nairobi that's occupied by prisons, should it just be set free and we use it for real estate and relocate the prisons to other parts which don't have such kind of pressure on land? We'll be speaking to a land governance expert in the next hour. Keep it right here. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Japan, biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also
mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 2.5 minutes to 9 o'clock. This conversation continues. So it's good to hear the Doctors' Union coming out categorically to say, we are yes for vaccination. Our only concern is the communication side of it. And that is founded. I mean, there's no... If the people who need to get vaccinated now don't know, they are receiving information on WhatsApp, come tomorrow, room 5, get your vaccine. Surely.
I think that's one of the issues that we share.
How will my mother know she's past 70? How will she know that it's time for her to get vaccine and where to go and get vaccine?
Yeah, a big issue, lack of information. I think that was one of the ones that we, it's a hurdle. One of the hoops that folks need to jump through. And unfortunately, if it doesn't come out, then we have a problem there. On the other side, though, here we are with this thing. The folks who are supposed to take it first, saying, well, okay. If you're not going to talk to me, you
inject yourself.
Yeah, you have extra. Do what you want to do with it. I think also now we need some proactive action on the part of these are the front line. Nobody else can do anything until they're done with you.
Yeah.
And those who are waiting for it are saying, okay, well, and he said rightly so, that they would then be the ambassadors to the rest of the country to say, okay, guys, we've done this, go ahead. They need the information that is true. The people who should share the information with you seem to be befuddled by a lot of other things going on right now. So how about extending a hand and saying, all right, talk to us so that we can then eventually help you. I think that needs to happen. Eat humble pie.
Kila kitu. We hopefully will have a conversation with the government spokesman soon, because this falls squarely on his doorstep. This is about information and information rollout. If the vaccines are in the country, if people do not know what they need to do to get vaccinated, what is the information department doing?
So what are we talking about?
Yeah. Matiang'i is protecting the things. Kagwe is transporting the things and taking them to the counties. Governors are receiving them and taking them to the hospitals. You, information guy.
Tell us what is supposed to be, who is supposed to be where, when, and
Who's
how.
supposed to be telling us these things? Who's supposed to be advising us? Keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about land governance in this country. And we look at the various parcels of land that people have been eyeing and salivating over. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
up your life. Traffic.
Okay, a little bit on Mombasa Road, still outbound. Then we're looking really around Bellevue and then towards Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Not too much of an issue. Ngong Road looking good getting into the city, coming out of Westlands and getting to the University Way roundabout. It looks pretty good. Landis Road then bringing folks into the city from Jogo Road and those areas also not so bad. So I think it's not too terrible a day right now, unless it gets worse, which we hope it doesn't. But then you'll get in touch if it does. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 9:02 now. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the fourth hour of the show. We've been live since 6 a.m. now into the final hour. We'll be live until 10 a.m. In the room with you this morning is Eric Latif and Nduoko C.T. Muga is away. Proverb of the day. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. This is an African proverb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rain does not fall on one roof alone. Everybody is privy to the opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of which, opportunities, right? So a couple of days ago, the CS of Interior, Fred Matiang'i, has proposed a few things. And he said that Committee Maximum Prison and the Langata Women's Prison should be moved out of Nairobi. He suggested that they should be moved to Kitale or Bomet. Places.
I wonder why you picked on those. Places that have vast land.
Exactly.
Okay.
Places that have vast pieces of land. The city is already too congested. Plus, there's need for expanded infrastructure in Nairobi.
Right.
And there are vast areas of land that these facilities, these centers, rehabilitation centers in the name of prisons take up.
Right.
That could be easily used for other things. He said Industrial Area Prison, Nairobi West Prison, and Shimolatewa should also be transferred from the respective cities. Why should we have prisons in the middle of the city when we could use that prime land to develop and increase amenities of the capital? He was speaking at the launch of the National Lands Commission Strategic Plan last Friday in Nairobi. Committee sits in the middle of its own 1,200 acres. Estates which lie fallow and untended. Langata sits on about 50 acres after the rest was grabbed. The commission developed the plan to ensure the implementation of its mandate to guide, its mandate is guided as spelt out in the constitution, statutory and policy provisions. The commission targets 20 billion shillings to make the plan operational. He says, well, one of the ways we can do this plan is wonderful. Right? So looking at ways in which you can actually mop up unused areas of land and actually now begin to develop the infrastructure of certain cities, whether it's Mombasa, whether it's Nairobi. But we have huge chunks of land.
1,200 acres.
Committee alone. Yes.
Langata Women, 50 acres.
Those are just the two. We've not been given the demographics of industrial area or Shimolatewa, right? And he said, why are we going very far and,
well, we're thinking so hard, and yet we have
these options.
It makes sense.
The viability of it, when you think about it, you're like, okay, hold on. Why then do rehabilitation centers actually need to be in the city?
Okay. This one. if we put it, juxtapose it as it would say, with the conversation about let's move the Nairobi National Park. Nairobi National Park, for me, don't touch. Committee, move committee, I say yes. I can see what you mean. Where we have reached in Nairobi is a place where we are not even able to expand anymore. Look at the deployment after the, what's it called, the reclassification of some certain estates. Upper Hill, look at Kilimani, Kileleshwa. Those are now taking up more and more housing units. But the road is not even, you cannot expand the road unless the National Land Commission goes and starts buying land to put up a road. We are getting more and more congested. Maybe we should move ourselves out of here. But let's bring in our guest who will help us understand this matter. Dr. Mwenda Makathimo is a former chairperson of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. He is the executive director of Land Development and Governance Institute. He is a land governance expert. He's on the line with us this time. Good morning, Dr. Hari.
Good morning, Latif. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
All right, pleasure too.
So, Dr. Makathimo, there's a lot that has been said about land. You have been one of those people who've been participating in land reforms in the country for many years. We are looking at Nairobi and the congestion that Nairobi is experiencing, and it will continue to experience as it's expected that urbanization will continue growing. Then we have what the CS for Interior is proposing. Let's look at some of these underutilized pieces of land and see what options there would be. What would your reaction to that be?
Well, first of all, the principle that we need to bank our discussion on is the principle of highest and best use of land and resources. Now, it is true that land within Nairobi area has not been put to its highest and best use. What do we mean by highest best use? We mean that into use that is economically feasible, use that is physically possible, use that is environmentally sustainable, and use that is socially acceptable in the most optimal manner. So if we look at like Eastlands, the estates around the Eastlands, you find the single dwelling houses around the Bahati, Jerusalem, all those places have not been put to their highest and best use in terms of intensity. The space within which you would develop is upwards, and having a single dwelling unit, a bungalow, occupying all that space, and it's just made of bungalows, when you can do even 20, 30 floors above, that shows you that it is not even at 10% in terms of optimal use. And even very many other of the old estates. So therefore, in terms of vertical use of the land, and in terms of optimal land use in Nairobi, we have not attained that. Not just Nairobi, countrywide. But we have to look at the suggestion coming from the Ministry of Interior within the context of land tenure. How is land owned in the country? Because that's where you begin. Land is either private, or it is public, or communal. Land in Nairobi is in two categories: public land and private land. There is no communal land or community land in Nairobi.
Yep.
So therefore, we have to look at the private land as it been put into highest and best use. Most of the private land, yes, but within the planning regulations. So we have to look at those who hold the leases in Nairobi and have not developed those pieces of land where they have leases or even freeholds, where they have private land. Are there people who have property within Nairobi that is undeveloped? There are many, even at the town center, right opposite the court near Kencom. You have vacant parcel of land there.
Yep.
Right opposite GPO, another vacant piece of land there. So you see quite a number of them that have not been put to their highest and best use. And you have to look at why. Are there development conditions that have not been fulfilled? Are there disputes? Is it lack of money? Or is it just people speculating with the land? That's the extent of the private land. On the part of public land, the guiding line or the guiding thing on public land is what purpose was the land acquired for? So in terms of optimal, you don't look at just public land in just in terms of economics. Saying that this would be a nice place to put up say a commercial complex. For instance, when you look at the stadium, you cannot say this is land that is gone into waste. Let's put up a commercial stadium. There is value, there is social value that you have to look at. When you look at Uhuru Park and the City Park, you can't say this is idle land. Let's put infrastructure here. It has social environmental value. Now, the question with prisons that we have to ask ourselves is, what was the public purpose behind the prisons being there? Then we review that purpose and see the optimality of that prison. Because when the prisons were set up, they looked at the issue of settlement. There are many people within the city, and there is bound to be crimes or offenses or people jailed. And then the courts are also within the city. So they looked at the complementarity. You have people here who will need to be taken to correctional facilities, and you also have courts that relate very closely with the institution of the prison. So you cannot take a prison to a place far away from the court, because you notice that the people in remand are always brought to court regularly, every other day. So that complementarity has to be there. If you have to review the location of the prison, you have to review also the location of the courts. Now, that is not to say that the land that is set apart or set aside for prisons is put into its highest and best use. In terms of public purpose, you cannot review it from an economics point only. You have also to look at the social purpose and the public purpose, because public purpose may not be just looked at commercially. Yes, it is true. All that land, we need to ask ourselves, as the public purpose ceased, or has to become less optimal. If you take the remand to far away places, then you have to find a way of transporting the prisoners to the courts, or you have to
you build a court.
You build a court that can be used as a temporary court next to the prison.
You make a temporary court. You have to look at where the lawyers are located and where the people who will be taken to those courts are coming from. So you may not take them too far away from the settlement.
Yes.
What we need to be careful about is, as we change the public use, are we saying that this land will be converted to a more optimal public purpose, or are we saying this land will be converted to a more optimal private purpose? So if we are saying we want to ease or release the land to make it available for investment, we have to ask ourselves, which investment? All right? Which investment is this? And when we take it for investment, how will equity be ensured and integrity? So that this land, again, when we don't open it up just for grabbing, we have to ask ourselves, as the public purpose is, then what will be the alternative? Where will the public purpose go? The next place where you will take this facility, for sure, you have to ask yourself, does government have an alternative parcel of land at that location? So that then you say government to government, government exchanging land with another government agency. Then it frees it up. Or is government going to acquire again? Will it go to purchase? So that if government is going to purchase, you have to look at what money will government pay, what money will government need to develop that other facility, and then weigh against improving or developing where the current location is. So that is the big question you have to do before you go now to the processes of relocating. And then the complementarity, how the other services that are connected to the prison, how they will be managed so that the other location you choose becomes also optimal in terms of complementarity with the other services connected to it, whether it is the police service, whether it is the judicial service, whether it is the services of advocates. Those are the parameters to look at. I do agree. If you look at the size of Nairobi and the planning realities when those prisons were being set in those places. Those places looked very far. They were very far. They were not. No one was settled in those places.
Yeah.
Prison was set up in a committee. It was in the coffee farm and near coffee farm. Then the other one that is in Langata, again, it was very far away. So I think the industrial area one and the Nairobi West one were the ones that were near town and were looked at in terms of convenience of travel to the courts. So we need now to relook, because planning is dynamic. We can look at planning in a dynamic way, but we must not do this matter during a political season like now. Because the risk of during political season, many things happen. Even well-intended processes might end up very, very, very negatively implemented, and public land may end up being lost. So we have to review this in a systematic manner and employ these parameters so that we get a guided decision that leads us into a decision that releases land, yes, for optimality and for highest and best use, but then secures the public purpose in a manner that does not defeat the social services that are rendered.
When the city was being planned, if we're looking at Nairobi specifically, Doctor, when it was being planned, all these amenities that you talk about being in close proximity to one another, was that what was considered as the city was being planned? That, all right, we're going to have the courts, the prisons have to be in close proximity to the courts, whereby lawyers that are not too far in terms of where their practice is and then where the courts are. All of these were taken into consideration when planning the city?
Yes, they were. You look at Nairobi West and where the court is, and look at where the High Court is at the city center. You look at industrial area, it's about 3 kilometers away from where the courts are. And you look at, these are the remand prisons. Then when you have been sentenced, you are taken to far off places, a little far off, like Langata was seen as far off, Committee was seen as far off, so that the ones who are serving, and then these large land was seen in terms of the prisoners will do farming there, they will do other activities, productive activities. That's why they are the farm site. But then this is even the concept of imprisonment and the correctional services, the way they are managed, has seriously changed. People don't just farm, using a djembe and all that. People in prison engage in technical things, in innovations, in vocational issues. So even if you're designing a prison now, you design a very modern facility that takes care of even the realities in terms of technology. That's why I say accessibility may be improved a lot by the court system depending on technology. If you automate most of the court activities, then the nearness of the service may have to be reconsidered. What looked very far may be near in terms of current technology. So these are the things you have to look at, but I agree that even the way the facilities are developed, it's not optimal. Even in themselves, even if you have to make the prison, maybe one of the parcels there can contain all those prisoners if the designs are properly done and in the most optimal manner.
Yeah.
A big number that we're looking at, 1,200 kilometers that
acres.
Committee, 1,200 acres, that committee sits on right now. If you were to look at that area now, what could be done with that big parcel of land that only very little is being optimized today? And then kind of gives credence or kind of gives some kind of merit to what the CS is saying, that how do we have all this land? Very little of it is being used. A lot of it is lying fallow. And we're talking about Nairobi that needs more in terms of infrastructure development, things that can be spread out a little bit. Is there not merit in that? Or how can it be used better?
Well, yeah. For instance, of course, we have this housing crisis that we have in the country, and you notice that we need to house the people living in the city, not just in terms of private rental houses and private owner-occupied houses, but we can have what we call government and social housing, and this can be converted into a housing project, but that is government-led, not just private. You notice like they did with the Ngara project, so that can be converted into that, but you have to look at the social dynamics of that housing project, because also you don't want to keep a living neighborhood where people are living and then you just put a prison right into the center. So you have to look at the dynamics. Those people who are in a correctional facility, where will you take them? Where will you have it so that then it is conducive for that purpose? And also, if you are releasing this land, then you have to design it to the most optimal manner, as I said, housing mixed to target the population that is there. But also, you have to be very, very, very careful that you also don't open it up to private individual grabbing. It has to be government-led. If that is the next public purpose that is seen by government, then it can be converted, but it has to be converted putting all those parameters into consideration, not just by an order, and we just say we are taking away the prison and this land is available here. We have to get to know when it is available here, how complementary will it be made with the other uses in town, and how optimal, and how will the legalities be managed so that then you have a sustainable development fitting in there, and the social function of the prison is also not lost.
I think I hear you. And when you're talking right now, the government has this whole part of the Big Four agenda is affordable housing and ensuring that there's better access to housing. You've just talked about the project that the government has rolled out in Ngara, in parts of Parklands and Pangani. If you can imagine, if the government actually took up this 1,200 acres of land, planned properly, and it's the one that led the development of a housing estate with all the facilities. There's going to be a hospital nearby. They put up a hospital. There's going to be schools from kindergarten all the way to high school nearby that can serve the population that will then be moved here. It starts easing up the pressure of housing, helps to bring the cost of housing down because now there's serious access to proper housing, and it's not difficult for committee to move to another place, in my opinion. It's a facility that is restricted. It does not have access to other parts apart from those that are linked to the justice system. Courts are not only in Nairobi. Security, police services are countrywide. Then it's possible for you to actually put up a prison facility in another place. And then this frees up what you're seeing as great pressure with urbanization for housing and all the attendant facilities.
Well, I do agree with you that whatever development, if that land, then the public purpose is shifted to another place, and that is converted to that other purpose, you have to have an integrated development that takes care of this complete balance, the economic, the environmental aspect, and also the social side, where you have all those facilities that you're talking about, and an entire neighborhood that provides all the social and economic and physical needs of people. That would really help in easing the pressure in Nairobi, and for sure it would help in easing in reducing the deficit that is there now. It is the deficit that makes housing very expensive, because if 1,000 people are chasing one housing unit, 1,000 people, then the price will keep going up and up and up. But if you reduce that to 3 people looking for that house or 2 people, then you can see the prices that will be there for purchase and for rental will be very, very, very stable and affordable. So that looking at the supply gap and filling it would really be a huge boost. But you have to know that this population will also need courts. And will need prisons not too far away. You may not take all the prisons to the one corner of the country. Again, you still need, because the population is big. So you have to ask what we do to minimize crime. Even in some countries, people have managed to minimize crime and promote the rule of law and order such that the prisons have been rendered almost irrelevant. You have no people to take there. So you can also work from that social side and the legal side and make sure you minimize the demand for prisons and you minimize the demand for physical lockdown and imprisonment, where you don't just take people with petty crimes and all those others and put them in prison and remove them from the productive system. So you can convert and re-engineer this system also so that you don't take lands, which is our prime resource, and just keep it for prison. So that whatever land is available for prison is minimal, and these other correctional measures and social order management measures are improved so that we reduce the number of people going into prison.
We're having a conversation with Dr. Mwenda Makathimo. He's a land governance expert, talking about easing the pressure that is Nairobi that's been growing. A proposal by the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior just the other day, maybe just said it off the cuff. I'm looking at the land that we have here. Committee, 1,200 acres. Langata women, 50 acres. If we moved them out of Nairobi and took them to another place, maybe not so far from Nairobi, you could then free up pieces of land here that can be used for other social amenities. And that's why we're having the Daktari with us and having this conversation with him. We want you to join the conversation as well on 0719-012-600. What can be done to ease the congestion and land pressure in Nairobi? What is it that can be done to ease the congestion and land pressure in Nairobi? We've talked about, the Nairobi National Park before, and we'll come back and ask Dr. Makathimo what he thinks about the Nairobi National Park as we look at what other facilities and how best then to do what he's calling highest and best use of land and resources. 26 minutes after 9, let's take a look at the weather and then we continue the conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Japan biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also covered. Mention our course, you will not fail to get it. Visit our website today on www.studyinjapan-africa.com.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, so we're looking at sunny conditions in Nairobi at 18, highs of 28 today, coming down to lows of 15. It's going to be sunny through Nyeri today at 15, currently highs of 25 and lows of 12, 30 in Nakuru, 17 right now, highs of 26 in Eldoret, partly sunny at 15, 21 degrees and mostly sunny in Kisumu, going to highs of 13 and lows of 19, 22 and mostly sunny in Kakamega, highs of 31 and lows of 13, 32 will be the high in Mombasa. It's still raining in some parts at 27 and mostly sunny at 28 in Malindi. We'll see highs of 28 in Kampala, mostly sunny at 23 right now. 27 is what it is in Dar es Salaam and partly sunny conditions. It'll rise to a high of 32. 28 will be the high in Johannesburg today. Sunny conditions through. Lagos is also raining at 27, highs of 32. It's sunny in Kinshasa, going to highs of 34 today. Warming up ever so slightly in Beijing, going towards evening. We'll see highs of 16 and foggy skies. Clear conditions in Paris at 1, highs of 9 and lows of 8. And rain now in London at 8, highs of 11. And we'll see highs of 11 also in New York. It's 8 degrees and clear now, coming down to a low of 6.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 9:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're having a conversation about optimal and best use of land, especially in Nairobi. How best can we decongest Nairobi? People have even talked about, how about we create a new city? South Africa, they created a new city next to Johannesburg. They called it Sandton. It's a completely new city, about, 40-something years old now. It's a brand new city.
Sure.
Can you move Nairobi into a new place and build new Nairobi, like New Delhi?
Look, these things are possible, and maybe Dr. can talk, because we give an example of Sandton in South Africa. We also have the example of Abuja in Nigeria. Abuja did not exist 35 years ago. It was the middle of the city, the middle of the country, and Lagos was the commercial and government capital. And then the government saw this is absolute madness, it cannot continue. Demarcate a certain part of the country, and we say, okay, we're moving everything up north. The entire center of the country moved, everything, courts, federal government, central banking system, everything moved to Abuja. So we've seen that things like this are possible. Right?
And a new city develops.
It's very young.
And then now you're planning from scratch. You have the ample time to do proper planning.
Right.
Put in the proper infrastructure. Put in the proper thinking ahead. Because right now, we were talking to Major General Badi, and he was telling us the sewer infrastructure in Nairobi right now can't hold. The water infrastructure in Nairobi right now, we need to do a lot more to basically expand and cater for the people. We have the conversation with Dr. Mwenda Makathimo. He is a land governance expert. As we wait for your calls, Jimmy is calling in from Malindi. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning, too. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Fine, thank you. Okay, going straight to the point, because due to time, I can say the only way, there are very many ways we can decongest Nairobi, the capital city. Just like example of what you have given, I had in mind just the same. But let me just insist on that. Look, how many cities, first we ask ourselves, how many cities do we have in Kenya? There is Mombasa, there is Eldoret, there is Nairobi.
Kisumu as
Lamu is coming, Isiolo is coming. So the only way, it is by being patriotic, feeling that there is an urge for also these other cities to get some specific facilities. Like, what am I trying to say? What our Matiang'i is saying about shifting Kamiti prison. I read it in Twitter. It was proposing Bomet or Kitale, something like that. I can't remember very well.
Yes, it was.
But now look, is the government not capable of constructing another prison in Kitale and Bomet?
It is.
No. Obviously, yes, it is. They can. They can construct it because they're saying about shifting. It means they will construct others. So what is the main point here? The main point here is that land that committee is holding, that is what is being targeted. So who is targeting that land? Who is coming to do development on that land? Why is that land being targeted? Who are the investors that are going to invest on that land? Is it going to be invested by people privately, or is it going to be a government project? What is that project that the government wants to do on such a big land like that, that it cannot do in other places in this country? Is it a private investor? Because the government
Jimmy,
is the one that is going to allocate.
When you hear this, Jimmy, you sense some commercial interest driving the conversation.
That is the point. And because the government is the one that shows the investors where they will do the investment from. Okay. Who are these investors? Are these the Chinese? Are these the Kenyans? Or who are they? So this is the point.
We hear you. We hear you.
Matiang'i should know that Kenyans are not stupid. And this is very direct because he is a citizen like me. And what I've come to realize is that we have to talk and talk like people. Gentlemen talk. You know, with the truth. Let us come clear. Mombasa has got a very big area here where whatever they want to do in Kamiti there, they can do it here. Isiolo, Lamu, there are very many other places. We cannot say that we are making Nairobi a super city, and we are saying that we are patriotic, and we are not seeing other people and other places which need the same development that is going to create employment.
We hear you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Mike in Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
I'm fine. How is Ndu doing?
Ndu is well. Good morning, Mike.
I want to start by saying,
yep.
I really, Siti Muga was in the studio when you're discussing the African leader who is admitted in the hospital, so that I can just get some words of wisdom from him. Secondly, this issue of relocation. I don't see a problem per se about what the CS is proposing. Because again, if you look at the major cities around the world, you'll find that most of them, such kind of institutions are outside the outskirts of the city, so that the city is fully used for infrastructural purposes. Secondly, look at the piece of land. For example, Kamiti is holding 1,000 acres, which not all of it is being utilized, only a portion. And that is why the CS is coming clean and saying, okay, we can utilize this land since it's in the capital city. Remember, Nairobi is the gateway to Eastern and Central Africa.
Right.
Most of Eastern Africa. You know, and you can't force an investor, you know, like now Nairobi is full, you can go and invest in Mombasa or elsewhere.
Yeah.
An investor will invest where he feels that it's what his heart wants to invest. You know, and so if he feels, you know, I want to invest in the gateway of Eastern Africa, then that is why he feels that his investment is going to do well.
And that's the best place.
You know, you can just try talking to him, like, you know, we also have other options where you can explore, but if this is what you want, then again, we cannot force you to go elsewhere.
We hear you, Mike. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 0719-012-600. How can Nairobi be decongested? Dr. Makathimo, you've heard the two callers. What would you say to that?
Well, I agree that with Jimmy, you know, Kenya has a history of how public land has been managed before.
Yep.
And you rightly said in the beginning that part of Langata land, prison land, has been grabbed, and many other prison lands that have been set aside, or even public lands, have been grabbed irregularly, and also sometimes you have to be very, very, very careful that when you have a suggestion like this, that the accountability measures are beyond reproach, that there is no commercial interest, private interest that is disguised in the name of highest and best use that is seeking to take this land, private people to benefit and, you know, grab in that manner. So even if we say the public purpose may have been overtaken as of now, not entirely, but may not be the most optimal in the prisons now, and then you refer that public purpose. But if you decide to convert, then that conversion must of essence become one that is very transparent, one that is highly competitive, and one where there is very open public participation, so that then questions of integrity are addressed in the most satisfactory manner. So that's the elephant in the room with regard to that. You talked about the Nairobi National Park. That's when I said highest and best use doesn't mean in terms of only economic value.
Yeah.
The Nairobi National Park has immense ecological value that cannot be equated to any concrete. that would go there. It also has serious cultural value that is unique to this country in terms of tourist attraction and all that, and in terms of balancing the ecosystem and cleaning the air that is polluted from the industrial area and all this traffic. And then the only open space that we have that is large enough in this country, green open space, is that park. So that environmental value must be safeguarded whatever the cost. There's few open places we have, Uhuru Park and the rest. They may not look viable commercially, but if you look at them in terms of ecological value, environmental and social value, then you see the value. There are all these housing estates we say we want to create. We must create recreational places for these people.
Yep.
We must create green spaces. Even that 1,200 acres must have sufficient green spaces. At least 10% of it must go into green open spaces. So that's why I said if it is being opened, it must be opened for optimal, highest and best planning, balancing the environmental and the social and the ecological values. So that has to be safeguarded so that we don't just open a I also agree that the congesting Nairobi, the congestion we find in Nairobi is because of the rural-urban migration, intense rural-urban migration, because the employment opportunities are mostly found in Nairobi, and most of the industries and the productive enterprise are found in Nairobi. So that issue of decentralization, devolution, and growing other cities, alternative cities, like Isiolo was proposed in the Vision 2030. If we continued with that plan of Isiolo and not leave it midway, then you would find opportunities that are availed by Isiolo, then would help also decongest. If you got the other hubs, the Lamu and the Kisumu and the Eldoret and the Nakuru being promoted as was envisioned, then you would make the migration into Nairobi be arrested. So that what you are saying now is the people will stay in Nairobi. But I'm telling you, because of the what we call agglomeration economies, or enterprise and activities coming together, they bring in advantages that keep spurring growth. The agglomeration economies created by Nairobi as of now will continue. Because people are there, they will continue for a long time. If you build another center, you may take a lot of time to attain what Nairobi has naturally. So you can write on what Nairobi has, and we should not lose that because we want to build Isiolo. Isiolo is long. These others are long term. It can be built as we continue.
As we continue with Nairobi.
People who are already in Nairobi can continue suffering until we build a new city. No.
Let's go back to the phone lines.
That's the kind of thing we should have. And I like the metropolitan strategy, the metropolitan growth strategy, and plan within the metropolitan so that you combine Kajiado, Machakos, Thika, and Nairobi and Kiambu. In that manner, that will also help us make this more viable and optimize the value that is already created by Nairobi.
Going back to the phone lines, Fred in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today, Fred?
Fine, thank you. Just wanted to comment something on this topic about land.
Yes.
Because I've had the privilege of staying out of this country. And I believe land economics is the gateway to opening up this country and moving from the politics that we have in the country. Because last year during the COVID, I stayed in the U.S. I was locked there for some time, and I happened to have toured a little bit of the countryside. And what I can say is, every corner that you go, you'd find a small industry, whether it's a first generation, second generation. So as we are opening up the infrastructure, we also need to converse about the issue of land economics, so that we are able to move out the concentration of, as they say, the big four. They are talking about industrial build-up of the industrial economies. This should be taken out of Nairobi. And I believe the issue of moving the prison out of Nairobi should be guided in a very structured manner, because as the expert was saying, it's driven by many things. But I've seen maximum prisons where they are taken out maybe somewhere deep in the desert. So I think as we converse about the issue of land, we need to look at it from a bigger perspective. Even at this moment where we are talking about it's a constitutional moment, because land economics has the power to turn around the economics of our country. I think that's what I just wanted to comment as we talk about land economics.
Thank you for calling in, Fred. Lydia, good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good
Lydia.
morning.
Oh, good morning. This is Lydia
Yes.
from Nairobi. I wanted to say, these are my thoughts and my words. If your clothes are torn, it is okay. If you don't have any money in your pocket, it is okay. But to stay alive, you must have water to drink, eat the food grown around you, and have a place to sleep. You have all the water to drink, the food, the chicken, eggs, and whatever. Your stomach is full and you have gone to sleep. So these are the values of life for birds, animals, and people. Food, water, and teach ourselves to grow it around us. And that is what is so important to stay alive healthily.
Thank you, Lydia. Maina Karogo, good morning.
Morning to you, Mr. Sid, Mr. Eric.
Good morning, Maina. It's Eric and Ndu today.
I'm good.
Very good.
I want to contribute to your conversation and say that the proposal on how the government can use the idle land, maybe it is in outskirts of the town.
Yes.
And then they come up with the idea to improve the one in the urban for profitable businesses. It is not a bad idea because actually, in Kenya, people think Nairobi is everything. Congestion in the city. Whereas we have some places we can put up some facility and work out. But the problem, when one person comes with a good idea, there are always those people who wanted to propose it. Not because it is bad, but because they wanted to show whoever came up with that idea, you are not good enough, we are the one who is supposed to.
Oh, we've lost him. We've lost Maina. But we hear the points that he's raising. You wanted also to raise a point with Dr. Makathima.
Well, just to ask that, even looking at, with the development that is looking to happen in this country right now, wouldn't it be the answer that you start to develop other parts of the country? And there's so many benefits that you could gain from that you spread development around the country, that we don't have to use the terms now when we hear things like far-flung, underdeveloped and things like that. So wouldn't it seem like the obvious thing to do to start developing other parts of the country? You reduce the pressure that you have on Nairobi, for example, and at the same time, you bear a fruit of, other parts of the country then benefiting from that development.
Yes, of course, the idea behind the devolution was to make sure that other places develop so that government is not at the center. And development been done the way it was envisioned in Vision 2030, and the devolution bit is being done in an orderly manner, then we'll be able to make those other places attractive. For instance, if you have a county that has vast land like Machakos, remember when the governor of Machakos had come up with the serious plans of how to develop the city and open up land for investment, that was a fantastic idea because we can service other lands and make them attractive. Because what drives the demand for land is the services that are available, and it's serviced. Even at the farthest point of this country, you find people there. If they have water, if they have electricity, if they have the schools, quality schools, if they have hospitals there, if they have all that infrastructure and communication is efficient, you'd be shocked. Why would a desert like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, why would they attract that investment? It's because they are serviced.
Yeah.
So if you service outer lands, then the questions of congestion in one place would disappear. So even the issue of land becoming very expensive, it is very expensive because we are competing for very little service land.
Yeah.
If we have all the lands around service, you have the transport system that work very well, so that a place like Isiolo becomes a 1 hour journey or a 45 minutes journey. When Kisumu becomes 1.5 hours, Mombasa becomes 2 hours. Then you don't have to live in Nairobi even to work here.
Yeah.
So this servicing other lands is the best and the most sustainable way, because even if we use this land that is available here for the purposes we are talking about, that will be a short-term, quick fix solution. But in the long term, we would have to go the way of servicing and making the other lands attractive. But we have also to make sure that we don't just look at development in terms of concrete. We have to look at it in a wholesome manner, in terms of quality of life that is brought, clean environment, good supply of food, available social amenities that are uniform and that are quality. If you do it in that manner, then you can have what we call highest and best use, not just highest economic use, but highest socially, environmentally, then economic.
Another time for another break as we continue this conversation. As you're about to conclude the conversation with Dr. Mwenda Makathimo, we'll be taking more of your calls, maybe 2 or 3 calls, 0719-012-600. In the meantime, let's see traffic as we get into 10 o'clock.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Japan, biotechnology, yes! Hey, Samuel, are you into business now? What are you importing from Japan? Knowledge! I'm going to study biotechnology in the best university in Japan. I applied and ta-da! Japan? Yes! You will have to first learn Japanese. No, my friend. They have more than 850 courses that are provided in English and very affordable. Hey, how do I apply? Kuja Osome Japan. Study in Japan Global Network Project brings you an opportunity to study in Japan. Log on to www.studyinjapan-africa.com and apply to study in Japan with over 100 universities providing cutting-edge science and technology courses including the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, AI, environmental studies, information technology, and many more. Not only postgraduate but undergraduate level is also covered. Mention our course, you will not fail to get it. Visit our website today on www.studyinjapan-africa.com.
All right, so it looks much better now. Getting out of the city, getting into the city, we don't have too much. I don't think we have any of those shout-out problems right now. It looks like traffic hour is officially over. Let's take a look at what it looks like through the day. Also, let us know if you might run into any of it. It's probably going to pick up later on in the day, but for now, I think folks have done well, right? Okay, SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the day. You can also text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
The show, having a conversation with Dr. Mwenda Makathimo, Executive Director of Land Development and Governance Institute. He's a land governance expert. We are talking about what needs to happen to ease the pressure of our growing urban centers. Nairobi is getting to a point of saturation almost. Many would argue that. But then others would say, well, not yet. Maybe it's not yet gotten to that point. Dr. Makathimo, you're talking about servicing these other areas so that you can say that it's possible for people to move because they are able to find serviced land and they can build. If we look at the case of the Konza Techno City, that is just a couple of kilometers down Mombasa Road, would you say that is a serviced piece of land? from what the government envisaged in terms of putting up a techno city there, and then going forward. I think we've lost Dr. Makatimo on the line. If we can just get him back, Juma, for us, so I can continue the conversation as we conclude. Such an area, launched by President Mwai Kibaki, said, we want to bring our own Silicon Savannah. Let's acquire 3,000 acres from a community that had 3,000 acres of land in Malili. Government bought that land. Then over the years, the government has been, servicing the land. There's power station being put up there, some roads maybe being put up in there, and what's been
water
happening.
Running through,
maybe finding source of water and adequate, reliable source of water to take to that place. Before all those things are done, would you say that, a Konza Techno City can actually even become a city?
It's possible to. I mean, what is not possible to do? When a lot of things can be applied to it in terms of, okay, ready to do this? Are we ready to throw the resources that are required behind it? I think so. Is it possible to do? Absolutely. There's nothing that's not possible to do once, that kind of commitment and support has been thrown behind it.
Dr. Makatimo is back on the line. Dr. We're talking about Konza Techno City and the work that's being done there. Is that what you'd call servicing a piece of land? And is it adequate?
Well, it's part of it. It was planned as a special project where we had designated uses and the infrastructure is being provided. Of course, the servicing that I'm talking about that is this kind of pressure, just of designated cities like Konza. But Konza is one of them, part of a decentralization and creating a special zone, a special economic zone that has all those complementary issues. But what I'm talking about is taking services everywhere in the country. For instance, making sure that the entire Kajiado has sufficient water, has sufficient electricity, has sufficient permanent all-weather roads that are motorable. The Yambu and Kisumu and those niches, so that people can easily move. People can have the same quality of life. They don't have to rush to town. Then the other bit is getting the key services that improve interconnectivity. The way we are talking of, you have a speed train that services or connects all these towns. Somebody doesn't have to move from Vika to come and live in Nairobi. Somebody doesn't have to move from Muranga to come and live in Nairobi for them to work in Nairobi. Look at other parts of the world and living in those big, working in those big cities. One travels 200 kilometers every morning and they only take 45 minutes. The time you take to come from your house in Langata or in industrial area to get to city center is the same time. It takes 1 hour, 2 hours. And areas who are serviced outside in a good way, then one would even have no reason to come and look for a house in Nairobi. You live in Nakuru, and even if you have a job here, in the morning you can leave your house and come.
And come to work,
You come in 45 minutes and you're in the office, and you don't have to the traffic. So that's what I'm talking about, that you don't have to come and live in Nairobi. The other bit is, if you create the employment opportunities, like Konza City will create in Machakos, of industries, of commercial enterprises, then one doesn't have to come to Nairobi. So that is also a good step. It's one of the blocks. But that one is highly specialized. But you can provide these other services and people live on their own land. People have land. People have land where in Nyeri. People have land in Embu. People have land in Kitui. People have land in Narok. And they don't have to leave Narok to come and live here. Yes.
Dr. Mwenda Makatimo, thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing with us your insights on land governance and, of course, opening up our eyes onto what are the possibilities of decongesting, not just Nairobi, but also just expanding opportunities around the country. Asante sana, we wish you a lovely day.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
And as we conclude the show today, today's proverb, rain does not fall on one roof alone. That is enough said. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the Situation Room. Nduoko and CT Muga Sitimuga is not in today. But Nduoko, my name is Eric
Latif. That's you. Yes.
me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life